And you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Brought to you by Guaranteed Foods, official sponsor of Family Mealtime. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, a Tuesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. The next 4 hours, we've got you. A lot of stuff to get into today. We will talk with Adam Teicher coming up at 11 o'clock. He is our Chiefs insider from ESPN. We will talk with him in the 11 o'clock hour. We'll discuss what's going on with the Chiefs currently through 6 weeks in the season. Still the number one seed in the NFL as it stands, or AFC as it stands right now. And the number one team in the AFC West, and a division that could be over at 6:30 on Sunday. So we'll talk with Adam Teicher about some of those things. Frank Clark, is there interest? Charles Omenihu returning. We're 2 weeks away today from the trade deadline. Is there anything that's going to happen over the next couple of weeks? Just sort of a preview, a primer, if he thinks the Chiefs are going to be interested in buying or acquiring any players, or if they even need to do that, considering what the cost would be to bring somebody in and how much of an impact can that player make. A little bit different than a year ago when the Chiefs felt pretty decent about their wide receiving core, and then they brought in Kadarius Toney to sort of supplement, but the conversation at that time was more of a, yeah, this is for the next couple of years. Kadarius Toney, you're bringing him in so you don't have to go and whether you draft somebody in the draft or go out and sign somebody in free agency, you're bringing Toney in because McCole Hardman's going to walk, and you're just making up for that already. This isn't a immediacy that you need this guy to go and impact this team right now. If they make a move, that's the way that would be viewed. So it would be a different scenario than last year bringing in Kadarius Toney. If you're bringing somebody in that does not know the offense, it will be a slow burn for them to get up to speed. And even Kadarius Toney, to a degree, is kind of a package player still at this point. That's what Brett Veach said. Don't take my word for it. Take Brett Veach's word for it when he mentioned Toney and Rice and some of those guys. It'll be more packages as the season progresses. 913-912-4810 is the text line. We'll hang out with Todd Lebo in the noon hour, a little fact or fiction with Todd Lebo, and we will ask him just fact or fiction questions of things that happened over the last couple of weeks, if they are a fact or a fiction that they happened since he was in Europe, disconnected from sports and pop culture. Fact or fiction? Kelsey and Taylor Swift are dating.
See, I'm going to have to...
Hasn't been that long.
I was workshopping that this morning. It's going to have to be at most every 3 questions.
Yeah. I'm just joking, by the way. That's not going to be the whole fact or fiction, because Dylan and I, us playing it would make no sense. That would just be a Todd-specific fact or fiction.
It's going to be in there somewhere.
He would have to go first.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to have to be... That's the issue that I'm saying. It's going to have to be every 3rd at most, because it has to be ones where he goes first. Or... Okay, listen, guys. Hold on. Listen close here. Or you guys could take a dive on one of them and just agree to get it wrong. Wow. So then he would also be like, oh, I didn't hear that, but that must be true because you guys both said it was a fact. And then, boom, that's how he learned how the Queen died.
Yeah.
Was that longer ago, too? Okay.
No, that was last week. Okay. Although... in Europe, I think you would have heard that.
I was in Europe. I was in Europe shortly after there was a new king. We heard about it.
Oh yeah,
it was on our chocolates at one point.
Say, welcome into the restaurant. Long live the king.
Pretty much that. It was pretty much that. I just, of course, repeated it verbatim because I didn't want to get put in the stockades. I'm not totally sure how that all works over there still.
But it would have been a great story.
Oh, it would have been a great story.
The stories you could have told as you returned from the stockades. You could have explained to me what the stockades are.
Isn't that the thing they put you your head and your hands in there in the public square, the wood slat kind of thing, and then
may I please get out, please?
People throw tomatoes at you.
I've been in here for like 7 hours, please. May I leave? Just a little bit, maybe a little bit of a break. My legs are tired, sir.
All I did was steal a loaf of bread.
I was merely hungry, wanted some loaf of bread, please. Nobody ever... She said let them eat cake. I thought it was bread. I didn't know. Gotta get back to my chimney sweep.
Sports Radio 810.
We'll talk with Braden Gall coming up at about 1:20 or so from ESPN Radio Athlon Sports. We'll get some college football talk with Braden Gall. We'll talk some college football with Todd Lebo, too. It's one of the things we like to do with Todd is talk some college football. And then soon, in the next month or so, hoops, because tomorrow's Big 12 Media Day.
Sure is.
And we'll be down there at Big 12 Media Day interviewing every single coach for 25 minutes in the 4-hour show.
And you might think the math doesn't work.
Yeah, right.
We've got multiple headsets.
How do you not know I'm not interviewing every single one of them at the same time for 25 minutes?
You might just be the one kind of expediting Jerome Tang's interview of Bill Self.
What if it's 25 minutes, but we play it at 2.5 speed?
Ooh, that's pretty good. That's how I listen to a lot of podcasts.
See?
I think it's done irreparable damage to my brain.
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's hard to pinpoint what has done the irreparable damage to my brain, but I know that's part of it.
I was listening to a podcast, and I accidentally went the other way, and it was like -1.
A great experience.
And it was Kevin Hart, and he was like, well, the way I'm looking at it through my career, I'm like, holy bleep, this guy is toasted. And I looked at him like, oh, whoops, and then put it at regular speed. He was just talking like Kevin. It was just a regular Kevin Hart talk, but he sounded like he was just like, I have been getting ready for this interview. Let me tell you, I have been pre-gaming.
If anybody listens to the Zone podcast on double speed, please tweet us about it, because that feels like an endurance exercise. Like I don't know how we talk pretty fast around here. I don't know how you do it.
That would be the Chipmunks, man.
It really would. But man, you would get so much information and mediocre analysis. Just bam, just right in there.
Right, and you'd hear chimney sweeps in the stockade.
That must be so confusing.
If somebody just tuned in right at that happened, like, what the hell is going on?
Why is it so fast?
It's 10-2. Never mind.
That makes sense.
I know what's going on. So
Chaos.
Braden Gall coming up at 1:20, and then we got Bethany Bowman's got her show tonight at 6 o'clock, and then followed by that is NLCS Game 2, Diamondbacks and Phillies. Phillies winning Game 1 last night, and the Rangers taking a stranglehold on the ALCS. Undefeated Rangers in the postseason, now 7-0. 6 games on the road. 7-0, 6 road games. I don't know what they're going to do in an extended time at home. What are we even doing here? I don't even know what's going on. But this has been just an unbelievable turn. And baseball, sometimes you get hot at the right time. And that bullpen was trash down the stretch for the Rangers. And it's been pretty damn good. And that offense jumping out and scoring 4 quick runs on Valdez in the first inning, which ultimately was the difference in the game. I mean, that first inning of 4 runs, the Astros tried. I mean, they put a run on the board in 4 different innings, but fell short. And I'm not sure why people have continued to. I will preface this by saying I know it was a 2-run game, and you're not going to walk a guy to bring up the tying run at the plate. But you do wonder how many times the Rangers will choose to pitch to Yordan Alvarez the rest of the series, because he is just locked in as anybody is locked in. So 913-912-4810. The Chargers end up losing last night, which isn't necessarily a surprise because the Chargers do like to charger. And I said yesterday I was feeling the Chargers winning last night. It's who I thought was going to win. I loved the under. As we said a number of times on the show yesterday, that the under was just unbelievable this weekend, was 12-2 going into last night's game, and the under hit by 20 points.
Unbelievable.
13-2, the under was this weekend in the games. I would just say stay with the trend until this thing starts to head back the other way. Right now, it doesn't seem like Vegas can make the lines low enough for what's going on. And we'll see if it. But if you play every single game, put $2, $5. I don't know what your units are. I have no idea. But like a half unit or a third unit on like every single game, you'd be profitable at this point through the season. And I think by a pretty decent, depending on how much money. But even if it's like $1 and that's what you're doing, is like that's typically what I'm just having some fun there. Well, you'd still be profitable even at $1. You'd still be,
It's not just rooting against offenses either. You can root for defenses. There's a lot of good defenses right now.
And that might be what's going on. But the Chargers lose last night, and it looks like the AFC West could be over on Sunday, which, whether it's a surprise or not, I don't think anybody believes in the Raiders.
No.
Jimmy Garoppolo, apparently
sure
it's not as bad as they thought it was, but we'll see how long he's out. Denver's 1-5, and the team that, is completely changed because they have a really good coach now. Mm-hmm. So they're not the worst coach team in NFL history and last year like they were. So they're 1-5 and took a timeout when the coach lost track of the downs. The offensive coach lost track of downs.
If that was disqualifying, there would be no head coaches in football anymore.
Oh.
If offensive-minded head coaches who won one Super Bowl and then went off that reputation for years and years, if they all got disqualified by bad clock management, the Broncos and Cowboys would be lost in the wilderness.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
They would have no idea what time it was, but the sun's straight ahead. Maybe it's, 6:45?
It's got to be 3:72
a.m., I think.
I'm not sure. Told you it's solar eclipse. It's crazy.
That's not how it works. It's right there. Sun's very high, like high. I don't know, midnight.
The line has actually come down. Interestingly enough, it was Chiefs favored by 6 yesterday. They're favored by 5.5 now, and the total has come down a 1.5, which is also interesting. 50.5 now down to 49. Whether that matters or not. This weekend we talked about it yesterday, and still even more confident, because if the Chargers were to go out there and win against the Cowboys that, just got punked by the 49ers, and we talk about a week-by-week league, and the Cowboys said that was a must-win game and resilient to overcome the loss to the 49ers a week ago. And I don't know if they were the more desperate team. They shouldn't have been. I mean, the Chargers were 2-2, playing at home. And it ain't exactly like the schedule lightens up for the Chargers now moving forward. I mean, they head to Kansas City. They get the Bears at home. We'll see if it's with or without Justin Fields. Then they go to New York, where they probably won't score many points. Justin Herbert will be embarrassed. Then they play Detroit at home. They go to Green Bay. They've got Baltimore. They go to New England. I mean, it's not exactly a murderer's row, but the Chargers haven't exactly been the 27 Yankees either in what they've been able to accomplish. They have 3 losses this year by a total of 8 points.
It's so perfect.
It is chargering.
It's so chargery.
They've played every single game this year to a 1-score game, and they're 2-3 in those games. It's what we continue to talk about. Because if you don't have Patrick Mahomes, don't play in 1-score games. And that's legit. 1-score games in the NFL, 50-50, except for Patrick Mahomes. He is not a 50-50 quarterback in 1-score games. In fact, let me go back and see what his record is. Let's see, with the postseason. Technically, it was a 1-score game this weekend. No, it was 11. It was 11, not 8. It was 8, and then it got
11.
Yes,
you can't win by 10.5. Yeah.
Spinal tap.
Exactly.
That score went to 11. Patrick Mahomes, in his career, has a .690 winning percentage.
Nice.
He's 38-17 in 1-score games. That would be 12-5 over the course of a full season if he played every single game in a 1-score game throughout his career. He'd be 12-5. Don't play 1-score games, and you don't have things come down to the end and a play here or there. And Micah Parsons, who on the day had 1.5 tackles and a tackle for loss. That was the entire game for Micah Parsons. But you know what great players, difference-making players do? They seem to make plays on the highest stage when it matters. And at the end of that game, down by 3, and the Chargers taking a snap, and Micah Parsons just acted like Pipkins was a wet paper sack and went right through him, and there was nothing Herbert could do. Parsons just engulfs him and gets a sack and essentially sort of ends that drive. And then he throws an interception and all of that. But, I mean, Parsons was there, but he's also a guy that you scheme against. So that it's an impact on the field, even if he's not making an impact in terms of the counting stats that are there. But even if you scheme against him, at that moment, he just simply won. And let me go and make a difference. It's what Chris Jones does a lot.
Yep. It's
what high-level players do a lot. It's what Frank Clark has done in the postseason, since, that's at top of mind that we've talked about. Frank Clark has had a number of, big sacks in the postseason, and drive enders and game enders, things like that. But it's just, I don't know if it's Brandon Staley, and I don't know if it's Justin Herbert. Kellen Moore was going to be different. Mm-hmm. And he really hasn't been. In the Titans, they scored 24 and they lose in overtime. Cowboys, they score 17. They scored 34 against the Dolphins. But still wasn't enough because the defense wasn't good enough. Like, I mean, I still think the Chargers are talented. And I had them as one of my contenders a few weeks ago. We need to do an update on that. But at this point, it's Sunday night, we'll be questioning whether or not they are going to make the playoffs.
It's so fascinating because it is so difficult to separate the parts with the Chargers. Yeah. Because it always seems to infect everything, right? Like, okay, this game is not Keenan Allen or Austin Eckler's fault. Okay, good to know. Then what? Well, it's hard to say beyond that. Kevin Clark had a tweet last night that said, man, the Chargers sure do seem to do a lot of the things that poorly coached teams do. Must be a coincidence. and that's part of it, way beyond the fourth down go situations. And if I could ever figure out a way to have as much vitriol in my voice ever as Troy Aikman does when he says analytics, I would be able to use that power for good, which is aside from the point. But what was wild last night is last night.
They ended up punting on this drive. It must be analytics.
The analytics punted them here. It's unbelievable.
They didn't pick up a first down on this drive. Analytics.
I was going to say analytics told them to punt on second down, but actually it was the other coach who decided they didn't want to call a timeout to let their quarterback take a shot to the end zone at the end of the first half. So work on your analytics there, analytics here. You just blame bad coaching however you want, whatever, fine. The argument has been lost, and we're all worse for having it. But what was different last night, Justin Herbert was at fault. He had a couple of dimes, like some actual incredible throws, but more often than not last night, Justin Herbert was part of the problem. And that, I think, may have been his worst game, notwithstanding that rib injury stretch, the worst game that you can't reasonably say, okay, well, I mean, he was injured. Now, obviously, the offhand for Herbert, he's wearing a hamburger helper glove out there. It looks ridiculous. It looks too big. It's got the extra tape on it, whatever. He was running still plenty and all of that. And again, coaching and figuring out how to use this guy the best. But last night, Herbert was not, he's not protected from criticism, as is often, I think, fairly the case for them. It's fascinating because pivoting it ahead to Sunday against the Chiefs now, you could have spun this either way. If Brandon Staley was a good coach, he could spin this either way, where you could have said, hey, we beat the Cowboys, and now it's time to take on the Chiefs for the division. Hey, we had some ups and downs. We beat the Cowboys at home, kind of, in our home stadium. How funny was it that all of the old Cowboys were there in L.A. in a stadium that sounded like it was in Dallas? Just a perfect little cluster of both of those teams. But you could say, all right, we took care of business against the Cowboys. Now we go get the Chiefs at Arrowhead. We take that from them, and all of a sudden we're driving in the AFC West. I was getting fired in week 2. Now we're going for the division. Now the Chargers, if they know what they're doing, if there's any gas in the tank whatsoever, now it's, hey, we're going to Arrowhead, and this is our season. Like, if you want to be in this conversation for the AFC West, it has to happen for us on Sunday. So either way, this could be a really this is a high leverage game for the Chargers. The Chiefs should treat it that way regardless. Yeah. But I think it would have been a lot more effective for the Chargers to say, after all that garbage, we get to go to Arrowhead for the division right now, and we have a chance to totally reshape not just the division, but the DNA of the conference right now. If we can go knock the Chiefs off right after we knocked off the Cowboys, what's that? We charge it in the fourth quarter again. I can't explain it either, but it's not flying to the football on a broken tackle that ends up going for 30 extra yards. It's Quentin Johnson getting bullied at the top of his route that turned into that Herbert pick. It's some bad decisions from Herbert. It really is
throws.
It's a team effort. Yeah, that's true too.
He missed.
It's a team effort, and which makes the Chargers so special.
He missed Keenan Allen wide open twice. Twice he missed
horrible.
him. And both of those drives didn't end up in points.
Yeah, those are horrible.
I mean, one of those drives, as we got into yesterday, technically ended up in points because when he missed a wide-open Keenan Allen to the left, they ended up punting, but that was the muffed punt.
There you go.
Well, that was I thought it was
that
muffed.
Drive did, well, yeah, right.
Because they punted it. Oh, I thought it was muffed, and then the Dallas Cowboy guy went over there and touched it, and the Chargers got the ball, and then they scored a touchdown there.
Right, so that would be a muffed punt. It was never full possession because all he did was touch it for literally no reason.
But the first play of that original drive was when he just airmailed.
Yep.
A wide open Keenan Allen running down the left side.
Horrendous miss.
Just could have been 7. They ended up getting 7 there a different way.
Yeah.
But it also cost them, let's see, when they scored with 7:15 on the clock. He missed Keenan Allen with 11:19. That's 4 minutes.
Yep.
It's 4 minutes of football. They might have tied the game at 17 apiece with 10 minutes to go in the game. Yep. As opposed to getting the ball back with 2:12 or 2:20 to go in the game down by 3. Because of the Cowboys, running their offense. Now, everything's different then because if you throw 4 more minutes on the game, are the Cowboys running their offense the same way? They're late, all of that stuff, right? The couple of stats from last night's game, and we'll take a time out, and I want to get into offense and what we've seen and the Chiefs as well. But this stat after Monday Night Football last night, most losses by 3 points or fewer in the last 2 seasons. Did you see this stat?
No, I don't think I did.
There are 4 teams that have at least 5 losses by 3 points or fewer in the last 2 seasons. So that's last year. So that's 17 games plus 6, 23 games. There are 4 teams that have at least 5 losses by 3 points or fewer in the last 23 games. 4 teams. This is fascinating. This is great.
If the Chargers and Vikings aren't both on the list, I'll be stunned.
Vikings are not on the list.
No Vikings? I guess they won so many of them last year, they didn't have a chance to lose any of them that close.
Tied with 5, the Arizona Cardinals and the Las Vegas Raiders. 6 losses, the Chargers. 7 losses, the Broncos.
Really?
3 of the 4 teams are in the AFC West.
Well, that's funny. Do we know how many of those are directly Chiefs delivered?
I was going to look that up this morning,
I'll
but
poke around.
I was doing so many other things for today's show and looking up offense and everything. I went through weeks 1 through 6 since 2018 to look at scoring in the league to see if it's really down and if there's a trend to it. So that took up probably about an hour and a half.
That sounds like a good project, though. I got a little red zone stat for you just for this year also.
Cool.
We're gonna fix the NFL's offense problem.
I want to do that next as well. But also Ed Werder with the tweet last night that Justin Herbert threw his 13th career interception in the fourth quarter of a 1-score game last night. It's 5 more than any other quarterback in the NFL since he entered the league in 2020. 13 fourth-quarter interceptions in a 1-score game. The next closest is 8 since 2020. Now, is that coaching? Is it desperation? Like, you'd have to go through and look at every single interception. Was he getting hit and it was like 3rd and 12 and I'm just going to throw it because if punting doesn't matter here? Was it 4th down? Like, those are things sort of to take into account. Also, they're a team that plays a lot of 1-score games. So probably any interception he throws in the fourth quarter is close to a 1-score game, more than likely, with the Chargers and how they play. So there's a lot of context to add to that. I don't think it means he's just not a clutch player because Mahomes has thrown fourth-quarter interceptions. Like, we've seen that happen with other quarterbacks throwing that. It's just, how many 1-score games are you in? How often is that the case? And how often does it feel debilitating? Because that's the difference, is anecdotally, it feels those interceptions are more debilitating for Justin Herbert when he's had a couple of red zone, end zone interceptions that have taken points off the board and cost them a win.
Last year, the Chiefs beat the Chargers by 3, beat the Raiders by 1, beat the Chargers by 3, beat the Broncos by 2, and beat the Broncos by 3.
5 of those.
And then they beat the Raiders by a bleep ton in Week 18.
5 of the 18 losses in the last 2 years for those 3 teams have come at the hands of the Chiefs.
Just the Chiefs last year alone.
Just last year by the Chiefs.
Patrick Mahomes is like the Scooby-Doo gang unmasking quarterbacks, but it's always Phillip Rivers under there every time. Justin, not you too. Yes, no.
And I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for those damn 11 kids at home. He's Phillip Rivers.
That's pretty good.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Dylan Michaels. 913-912-4810. So we talk about the Chiefs offense and what we're seeing so far this year from the Chiefs. And really what we're seeing this year from offenses around the NFL. And I have a theory, and I want to throw these numbers at you and Dylan, and I want to see if you guys come up with a quick theory of your own, or any particular reason why this may be. So going back to 2018, I don't know why I use that as the line of demarcation, but it's also 5 years, the last 5 years. Sort of those 5-year increments are fun.
BM, PM, pre-Mahomes, post. I guess be PM before
Bowel
Mahomes,
movement and
before
post-Mahomes.
Mahomes, post Mahomes. Yeah.
Chiefs franchise from 1970 to pre-Mahomes was sort of BM.
I think you cut it off at the beginning of 18. There's
before
that.
Mahomes
Yeah,
was a
it
bowel
was
movement.
kind of a BM. Most
was
of
a
it,
BM,
not all
yeah.
of it, but most of it was
Right.
kind of a BM. And then post Mahomes is congratulations, that guy.
Could be either way. So 2018, we're just going to go average points per game for teams. Average points per game for teams. 2018, 23.8. 2019, 23. 2020, 26.3. 2021, 24.3. So we've gone 23.8, 23, 26.3, 24.3. 2022, last year, 21.7. This year,
Under.
21.7.
Oh, interesting.
Through 6 weeks, the exact same amount of points per team / per game in the 188 games that have been played so far. 21.7, last year 21.7. So 23.8, 23, 26.3, 24.3, 21.7, 21.7. It is, in the last 5 years, the lowest of that, the 21.7, would be 2.3 points, so 2.5 points, almost a field goal less per team per game. And you're talking about, 5 points less than what it was in 2020 through the first 6 weeks. I have a theory. Do you have a theory, Josh and Dylan?
I do, in part because of how we've specifically seen defenses play the Chiefs. And I think we've seen this in other numbers as well, that you're getting a little more of sort of the dink and dunk offenses almost coming back. It was such a scourge through the early 2010s of a bunch of turnover avoidant check down quarterbacks, which I think Alex Smith in large part is unfairly kind of the face of, but was sort of the face of that era nonetheless. Niners Alex Smith, if you will. And that's certainly how defenses have been doing it to the Chiefs. Take more plays, longer drives, fewer possessions, score less. That's my working theory. But Dylan's is probably right. Whatever it is.
I like that, actually. I was just going to say that it's both sides adjusting in the offseason to each other, where you see the number go up, then it goes back down, then it goes back up again, then it comes back down. That's kind of was my thought, was the 26 kind of throws you off a little bit.
Well, here was the theory that I came up with, and I'm in line with Josh on this one. And my theory is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Like legit, Patrick Mahomes. He came into the league in 2018. 24 points per game, 23, 26.3, 24.3. And what happened in 2021 when it was 24.3? Because 2020 was high flying, and all of a sudden they're spreading it. Offenses, we're throwing the ball. Analytics are coming in. Maybe we're going for it more on fourth down. Maybe some more 2-point conversions before defenses started adjusting and things like that. But we were still playing like the Legion of Doom. We were still playing like some single high safeties that were there. And then the Bucs were like, bleep that. We're going to pressure you, and we're going to drop guys back. Now, they had the personnel to do that. And then in 2021, what was the story of that year? The league has figured Mahomes out.
Yep.
What's wrong with this offense with Mahomes? Then he figured them out and started rolling. But to me, 2021 is where the change started to happen, where defenses were going, we're not letting the high-flying offenses beat us anymore. We're just going to make you drive down the field, take more time. Now, I haven't looked at drives per game to see if those have dropped.
Curious.
This is the only one of the only theories I can come up with. I also think defenses are like pass rushers today. Like in the 90s, early 2000s would be like 7 of the top 15 in the league would be like maybe the 7 players now. I'm trying to think of the way to sort of describe it. Either way, it feels like there are a lot more high-end pass rushers and sideline to sideline athletic, whether it be safeties. You don't have the big safety just coming into the box to stop the run. You got more guys that can run around. You got more Ed Reeds, than you see with some huge safeties. You got cornerbacks that are multi-position. You've got linebackers that are fast. You've got defenses that get after the quarterback, and you've also got defenses that are saying, we're not just sticking one guy back there. We're going to drop. We're going to make you play, because they're doing it to the Bengals. Mm-hmm. They're doing it more to the Eagles.
The Bengals both of those are hilarious teams to do it to, given the nature of their quarterbacks.
Yeah,
both very differently. But like Burrow, you trust to just sort of rat-a-tat-tat, full speed. Hurts, you give Jalen Hurts grass in front of him, he'll go take it.
But the point is,
still you're playing that way.
But the Bengals, it makes sense to me, because how do I get beat by the Bengals? How do I give up points? Is it Jamar Chase and T. Higgins one-on-one down the field? Hell yes. Yeah. Or is it Joe Burrow might get the ball out fast, right? But if we're up at the line of scrimmage close, but we're also making sure nothing goes over the top of us, I'm going to get after him because that offensive line isn't good, or there's going to be penalties, and the more plays they have to run down the field, the more likely that offensive line lets them down, or there's a penalty, and now if you're dinking and dunking on 2nd and 20, well, you're punting because I'm not letting Jamar Chase and T. Higgins beat me deep. Yep. And that's what was killing teams. And I think it's a big part of it. And it started because teams were saying, we're tired of the Chiefs. We're tired of Patrick Mahomes. How do we stop this offense? Okay, we do the Peyton Manning. We make him get greedy. We make him on the sideline get antsy and say, I want to go and score right now. I want 2 plays to go score, and not, I'm just going to take the first read that's there for 6 yards. And that is a tough adjustment for a guy like Patrick Mahomes. And Peyton Manning used to always, when he sat on the sideline and watched other teams scoring and taking the air out of the football, would just get so antsy. And those were the games where he'd get in the game and the next play would be like an interception, throwing it deep. And now, then it starts to build on itself. Yep. Then it's like, well, now I'm back on the sideline again, and I don't get the ball back. That was one of the ways. That was always keep the ball out of Peyton Manning's hands, because he would start to almost, chew it himself to like, I got to get back out there. Mahomes is having to adjust to a new style of take the 5 yards, take the 6 yards.
I'm so glad we ended up here. I didn't know you were doing this project today, because there was some tweet last night. I can't remember. I didn't quote tweet it or fire anything off. I had this thought that has now come back to me, which was, man, I hope the NFL evolves fast enough for Mahomes to still be at peak power when it goes full circle, because it's all cyclical, right? Yeah. Like that's something we talked about earlier this season in terms of like, hey, you know what's kind of neat for the Chiefs to have a competent running game. That's not me changing what I believe about football. That's football changing and then me having to adjust to it, right? When Mahomes got into the league, there was an inefficiency of push that football downfield, go get these huge chunk plays, bleep it Tyreek's down here somewhere, your offense is going to take a stride. Then it was, all right, well, now the inefficiency is going to be underneath, and eventually it's going to be in the running game. And maybe eventually defenses will adjust to an underneath, quicker passing game, run-heavy offenses. And then all of a sudden, that deep stuff opens back up again. That's why it matters that you're good in all phases of an offense. Yeah. That's why Pacheco and a hopeful development for Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and Rashee Rice all still matters. Because when you have to respect all of that, then you start finding MVS downfield for 40 yards or whatever it may be. And I hope the NFL continues to evolve pretty quickly this way, because I think it's a blast. We're also seeing innovation on defense. It's just harder to talk about because a lot of it's happening without a play sheet, and it's behind closed doors a little more.
Dylan, do you have anything before we went to break, or are you just going to tell me to go to break?
I see that it's late too. I like this topic a lot. Can we tell Teicher to just? Can we just tell Teicher we'll call him at like 11:05?
No, we'll get back into this for sure.
I like this.
We'll
This is
definitely
fun.
we'll definitely get back into this, and I think it's something just to keep in mind as the season progresses, because this could be a common theme moving forward, because we're seeing that a lot more with the Chiefs, certainly, of take underneath stuff, take the underneath stuff, take the underneath stuff, which could also be the development of a Rashee Rice, and give him the ball and let him go and win the Belmont, and just have the ball sort of on his back and just go and just run and run through some people.
That was pretty good hoof folding work. I feel like
that was not bad at all.
It wasn't. Shout out to Ruback Fine Jewelry. It was just my ring going to town.
All right, wrapping up this first hour, we'll talk with Adam Teicher coming up at 11 o'clock. Right around the corner. Chiefs Insider from ESPN. Get his thoughts on 6 weeks of the season so far for the Chiefs. A little more than a third of the way through the season of games. Exactly a third of the way through the weeks of the season, with 6 weeks done. On to the second third. Do we do them in thirds now because the quarters don't work anymore? Do we do them in periods?
We should, yeah.
First period, second period, third period?
But saying the third
Overtime?
of the season's over right now doesn't feel so bad. There's still a lot of season left.
There's still, in fact, 2/3, some would say.
But when you said a quarter of the season had passed, like a week or so ago, I panicked.
Yeah.
Maybe that was just the effect of having to watch the Broncos on Thursday night. Maybe I'm just ready for it to be over.
Panicking. We'll see who's panicking. Adam Teicher next.
More free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we continue on this Tuesday edition of The Zone. Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, and Dylan Michaels. Let's talk some Chiefs football. Continue talking some football here with Adam Teicher from ESPN. He is presented by Twin Peaks. Set up your lunch game at Twin Peaks. Enjoy light yet hearty combos put together for you, available at an awesome price, featuring savory soups, crisp salads, and a variety of sandwiches to satisfy your every craving. Enjoy your next lunch break with Twin Peaks. Adam Teicher, our guest. Adam, how are you, sir?
Good, Jason. How are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. I'm doing just fine. Looking forward to some more football. We've certainly been enjoying the first 6 weeks of the season. Maybe not as enjoyable on Thursday night against the Broncos. We talked leading into that game. But what's your takeaway, and what's your sort of feel on the Chiefs coming away with the victory on Thursday night against the Broncos?
Yeah, another weird game, not like we came to expect or had come to expect from the Chiefs. But, you look around the league and none of these teams got to 21 points over the weekend. The 49ers, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Chargers, Buffalo, Cincinnati. Only one of those even got to 20, and that was, I believe, the Cowboys. So it was just a weird week. The defenses are really it's more of a defensive league, it feels like now, than it's been in a while, other than the team that's playing Miami, of course. But so I don't know how to digest all this stuff. I mean, certainly the Chiefs, there's room for them to be better offensively. But how much of this is just what's going on around the league, and how much of this is that they're just not what they used to be? So it's just been a weird year trying to figure all this stuff out. And the Chiefs certainly aren't the only ones having some offensive issues right now.
Yeah, I thought the Chiefs would definitely get to 30. I talked about it last week. You had it a closer game, though. You had, I wrote down for you, 27-23 was what you said on the show with us a couple of days before that game took place last Tuesday. So you sort of expected that to be the case, and you went through some of your thought process with that, and then we got off the air with you, Adam. We let you go, and then I spent 20 minutes calling you stupid because, how dumb is Adam? He's not going to play a close game. What an idiot!
I accept your apology, Jason. I accept this apology.
Adam, the Chiefs will only get to 27 points. Yeah, right. That's like saying the Chiefs will only get to 19 against the Broncos. That guy is a dummy. But it is interesting, though, because, you're right. It feels like a lot of these games are closer across the league, and there are so many one-score games across the league. I was, have been keeping track, since, just this last weekend when I was told about the unders by the stat that was like anytime that Vegas has set a line, a total of 42.5 or below, the under was hitting 80% of the time. The under on the lowest unders was still coming under. And the under, Adam, went 13-2 this weekend in the NFL. 13-2.
Wow.
And so that trend would have told me, hey, don't take the over with this Chiefs-Broncos game. Because we're just not seeing that in the NFL right now. Is that a product, do you think, of defenses adjusting to offenses? Is it a product of a different type of way maybe some teams are going about running their offense? Anything you can sort of glean from why we're seeing so many low-score games across the board and what feels like these close, possessional games that come down to the end?
Yeah, one thing you're really not seeing much of is big plays. The defenses have basically said, you're not doing that to us for the most part. And, so they're making teams drive the long field, and teams are having trouble doing that. That game last night, just the penalties, particularly on the Cowboys side. I mean, they couldn't drive the long field. They had to get that one big play from Pollard. But other than that, that was just a short pass that he did a nice job with, and basically did that by himself. There was some good blocking down the field too. But other than that, teams are just having trouble doing this. That kind of seems to be the mindset in the NFL now. Is okay, no big plays. We'll give you the 4 or 5 yard gains, but you're not. We don't think you can drive the long field on us. And you're seeing that a lot. So teams are having trouble doing that. So, maybe the team that wins the Super Bowl this year is a team that can figure out a way to sustain drives and score some points that way.
And maybe that's a change, or at least an added perspective from the Chiefs and us talking about them and what they're doing offensively and some of the struggles that are there, and that is a relative term compared specifically to themselves, the Chiefs, in talking offensively and Patrick Mahomes' numbers and things like that, that just simply looking at the way scoring is going on, around the league the last couple of years, it's down 3 or 4 points from where it was in 2021. And the Chiefs' scoring is down 5 points from, themselves through 6 weeks from what it was, a couple of years ago and even, last year through this time, that maybe it's just a change in perspective of looking at the way the offenses in the league in general are being played and going about running their offense right now, and adding that context to what, quote unquote, issues may be there for the Chiefs.
Yeah. And, Patrick Mahomes said something after the Denver game the other night. He said, "Hey, listen, if we were bad in the red zone, but if we had scored a couple of touchdowns there, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now." And he's probably right. We wouldn't be wondering what's wrong with the Chiefs. But you got to be good in those situations. Mm-hmm. If you're good offensively in situational football, third downs, red zone, short yardage, fourth quarter. Really doesn't matter how good you are the rest of the game. In the other situations, you're probably going to be pretty good offensively. So sometimes, or a lot of times, it does come down to that, how you do in the red zone. And the Chiefs certainly weren't very good at it the other night. And but you know what? Looking around the league, hardly anybody's good at it. Or at least I was irrationally interested in all the games this weekend. I mean, I got a weekend off with no Chiefs game.
Yeah.
So I watched 3 games on Sunday and the game last night, and it was all those games kind of looked the same to me. The teams just had trouble punching it in for whatever reason, and it got to a point last night where you sort of felt those teams weren't going to score when they got in the red zone because of just the problems that everybody seems to be having right now.
Yeah, I had talked about it yesterday. Adam Teicher's our guest from ESPN, NFL Insider, Chiefs Insider from ESPN, presented by Twin Peaks. I had talked about it yesterday, Adam, that you throw some hypotheticals and ifs, if this happened, if that happens, and you can't do that 15 different times in a game, but a change in perspective of sort of what the frustrations may be, because there are 2 games in which the Chiefs could not find ways to, punch it in the red zone or put points on the board when you felt like they had opportunities. The Jets and the Broncos are the ones that line, right. And that would be the most points scored against the New York Jets in New York by, if they got to 30, by 2 touchdowns. Since the next closest is 16 by the Buffalo Bills in Week 1. Then the Patriots scored 15. The Eagles scored 14. So even the Chiefs scoring 23 is still a touchdown more than other teams have scored against the Jets. But these sort of, hypotheticals and ifs, that first drive, if, the defensive lineman, Purcell, doesn't knock the ball down there, and Kadarius Toney, who's wide open on the play on third down and short, if they score a touchdown there, all of a sudden it's 7-0, it's not 3-0. The interception happened on the next drive if Mahomes just simply throws that away, or his arm isn't hit, and they kick a field goal. It's 10-0 instead of 3-0. They fake the field goal. Well, if they keep the offense out there and just say, here's Mahomes, this is a big if, obviously, and you pick up the first down and you score, hey, it's 17-0. But at that point, it was still 3-0. And the next drive, they get the Tony touchdown, which could have been 24-0. Instead, it's 10-0. And then the field goal to end the half is 27-0 instead of 13-0. It's just a vastly different feel if they find ways to punch it in a couple of times. Don't have the turnover. The ball's not knocked down at the line of scrimmage. And the fake field goal is just simply the offense stays out there. But it also doesn't mean that they're going to execute on some of those plays when they get inside the red zone or if they have first downs. Those are a lot of ifs that go along with it. But it's what Andy Reid said, Adam, which was, well, we're gaining yards. We're doing some of those things. But in the red zone and the important stuff, that's got to be cleaned up because 500 yards in a game and 14 points is not going to win.
Yeah, and you brought up Mahomes sliding short of the end zone against the Jets. You remember the Chiefs were down there at the end of the Jacksonville game. And
Jags as well, at the 1 yard line. First and goal at the 1.
So, yeah, so you'd think they're going to score there. So, if they had those 2 touchdowns, how much different would this look? But, some of the other things you talk about, the things that happened in the Broncos game, Purcell getting his hand on that ball and Mahomes throwing the interception and all that stuff, and the Chiefs going for it on 4th and 2 with the little sneak with Noah Gray. Those things happen in games.
Yeah.
Those are just a case of the other guys made the plays, and that's going to happen once in a while. And it's probably happening down there in big situations, maybe a little more than we're used to against the Chiefs. But those are the kinds of things that the Chiefs have to be better at. When you have a chance, you don't get a chance to score or make a big play on every play. When you get them, you got to make them. And we're so used to the Chiefs making those kinds of plays, and we've seen a lot less of them, a lot fewer this year.
Yeah, Adam Teicher is our guest, and just putting points on the board is the name of the game. And offenses are there to score points, not just pick up yards. And I loved the sarcastic response from Mike McDaniel, after week 5, so going into this last week for the Dolphins when he talked about, hey, you're leading the league in yards and doing all this stuff. He's like, well, yeah, that was our goal, is to lead the league in yards after week 5. So, we're accomplishing everything we want to accomplish. And obviously the dry wit from Mike McDaniel. So, yes, the points matter, and they've been doing a pretty darn good job of scoring points. But against the Broncos this year have been giving up 7 yards per play on the season heading into that Chiefs game. Outside of the red zone, Adam, the Chiefs averaged 7 yards per play. It was like 7.03 until they got inside the 20. And then it's like the faucet just turned off. And that to me is where, whether that's a hyper focus, whether it's more of play calling, whether it's a little bit of, I don't know if Andy Reid was saying, we can do this or that, whether it's get cute or not get cute because we can put it on film or not put it on film because we feel like these things we can beat the Broncos, and maybe we're helping out with the Chargers next week and the week after that for them to see some things that, do we have to be as fine in the red zone in this game? I don't know if that's a part of it, but they did whatever they wanted until they got inside the red zone.
Pretty much. And, and I'll go back to this. I still feel like the Broncos are not as bad as their record is. And I told you that last week, and I'm sticking by that. I think that's a better team than 1-5 right now. And maybe I'll be proved wrong as the season goes on. Maybe they're, a 3-14 team or something like that. I don't know, but I don't think so. And so I think, everybody saw the 70 that the Dolphins hung up on them. Credit to Miami and shame on Denver for that happening. But I think the Broncos are better now, defensively at least, than they were that day. I think that they're, you look at what the Broncos did against the Jets the week before the Chiefs game, and they played pretty well defensively, the Broncos. So I think there's some improvement going on there on defense, and maybe they'll regress, maybe they haven't improved at all. I don't know, but my sense is they're better than what they've played, and they're going to show that as the season goes on. Maybe they'll even be better in 2 weeks when the Chiefs play them again. But my sense is this win's going to look a little better down the road than it does right now.
Adam Teicher from ESPN is our guest, Chiefs Insider, presented by Twin Peaks. On Friday, or maybe it was yesterday, I don't know, as we were sort of talking about the feel around the Chiefs offense and the way they're sort of going about it, of just, because we were talking about resumes, and it was like, well, kind of like Josh was like, I like Miami's resume. And then somebody was like, what do you like about Miami's resume? Look who they've beaten, which is, not many good teams. They lost by 28 to the Bills. And sort of we kind of came to the conclusion of that it feels like the Chiefs in the past have been very flashy, right? And they've done some fun things in the ring around the Rosie and these fun plays that we've seen, put Patrick Mahomes in motion and all of that. But it feels like this year, Adam, the comparison, the analogy I made was, feels like the Chiefs are just sort of that lawyer that's professional, that's dressed to the nines, but just does his job. Litigation in the court, cross-examination, talking to the jury, all good. I'm going to go sit down and I'm going to win this case. Where the Dolphins sort of feel like the guy that is controlling the courtroom and is flamboyant and has all these, cool things that's going on. Is like, wow, this lawyer over there. Although he kind of got whipped in a case because he may have done some things wrong, but he was very flamboyant and very, very fun and energetic and colorful, and that's sort of what it feels like with the resume of the Dolphins. Yeah, but they were scoring all those points and they beat this team and that team. Versus the resume of the Chiefs, it's like, well, they scored points against the Bears, but it's sort of just been methodical in a lot of different games. But they're winning, sort of just going about their business, and it's odd because the Chiefs were kind of the flashy team that was fun and the flair in the courtroom while winning. This really just feels like this is the job. Let's go do the job. And as the season goes on, yes, we'll get better. The defense is awesome. We can live on the defense right now. The running game is there when need be. And the offense is going to figure it out. And the wide receivers and Patrick Mahomes. So let's just go win while we get better as the season goes on. Because while the Dolphins are trying to, have some fun right now, we're trying to have some fun in February.
Yeah, well, I think there's something to be said for that. You can't win a Super Bowl in October. You can lose a Super Bowl in October, but you can't win one. And, I don't know whether Miami can sustain this. I think they probably can, but I don't know if they can. And so I think there's still some room for the Chiefs to grow offensively. I don't know if you can say that about the Dolphins. So, and clearly, or it certainly looks like this is a Chiefs team with different strengths than what we're used to seeing from them in the Pat Mahomes era. It's a different type of team that's probably not going to be as what's the word? They're not going to be as impressive. They're not going to be as awesome. They're not going to be as fun to watch, maybe. But that doesn't mean they can't be as good. I'm really eager to see how the Chiefs' defense holds up now that they're starting to play some teams that are high-scoring teams regularly.
Yes.
I think their last, 11 games, I think 5 of them, is that right, are against teams that are in the top 7 right now in scoring. There's 2 against the Chargers and 1 against the Eagles, 1 against the Bills, and then 1 against the Dolphins. Yep. I think I have everybody there.
Yep.
So, now I want to see it. Okay, it's a great start for the Chiefs defensively, but can they sustain? We talk about, can Miami sustain offensively? Well, can the Chiefs sustain on defense?
Adam Teicher is our guest. If you went back through the years of Patrick Mahomes, this is now year 6, so weeks 1 through 6 in the 6 years for Patrick Mahomes. Do you know what season they have the widest point differential? In the first
I cheated. I saw this.
Oh, darn it!
So I cheated. So I would never have guessed it, though. Yeah, you're right. I would never have guessed this would be the year.
Yeah, this is the year. It's this year. They are plus 59. The second highest was 2020 when they were plus 48. The third highest was 2018 when they were plus 43. And then last year they were plus 30. They're almost 30 points better in 6 weeks in point differential. 2019 they were plus 28, and 2021 they were plus 19 in that one. But they're plus 59 this year, and obviously a lot of that has to do with the defense that you were just talking about, and we'll see what happens moving forward because, the defense is giving up 14.7 points per game, which is the fewest by a full touchdown in the first 6 weeks of the season for any year that Patrick Mahomes has been the quarterback. The next closest was 21.2 in 2020. Adam, do you know what the 2 lowest scoring defenses in the first 6 weeks for the Chiefs have in common? 2020, when they had 21.2, and this year at 14.7.
The offense wasn't very good. Or no. 2021 was the year where they kind of a little bit weird coming out of the gate. No, I don't know.
They had a defense that the year before was sort of just put together and figuring out on the fly, and that next year a lot of those same guys returned in those same spots, and they started off pretty fast because 2020 was the run it back, and this year is the everybody on defense essentially returning in those same spots. and it's Spagnuolo being able to have a better idea of the guys that he has. So it's a quicker start. And they went to the Super Bowl that year, and injuries sort of tore that team apart, obviously at the end of the year. But that's why I wonder about sustainability, and obviously the offenses they go up against. But looking at that one in 2020, the way that defense started, and knowing that throughout the year it was that was a 14-1 team when the starters went out there and played throughout the season, and so far this year it's a touchdown better than that. I think that's interesting, just the returning guys, and that's been the two best starts defensively for the Patrick Mahomes era.
It is, and the Chiefs have been pretty good under Spagnuolo in improving defensively as the season goes on.
Yeah.
In particular, 2019, Spagnuolo's
Yes.
first year, the Chiefs weren't very good early in the season on defense. But the last, I think it was 6 weeks of the season, they led the league in scoring defense, and they were pretty good on defense in the playoffs that year too. So, so they have gotten better. They have improved. I don't remember a defense that's regressed as the season's gone on under Spagnuolo in any significant way. So you wonder whether what's this year going to be like? Can the Chiefs get better? Can they make improvements defensively, or is this what they've got? Or are they going to take a step or two backwards and be more like they've been the last few years?
We'll take a timeout talking with Adam Teicher, presented by Twin Peaks Chiefs Insider, and we'll talk about the defense getting a player, an addition for the Chiefs coming up this weekend against the Chargers. Maybe there's another addition, a reunion along the way. Anybody else, any other moves maybe over the next couple of weeks with the trade deadline? We'll talk about some of those things with Adam Teicher and also get his thoughts on the Chargers game for Sunday, 3:25. More Zone rolling along next. Hanging out with Adam Teicher from ESPN Chiefs Insider, presented by Twin Peaks. Step up your lunch game at Twin Peaks. Featuring savory soups, crisp salads, and a variety of sandwiches to satisfy your every craving. Enjoy your next lunch break with Twin Peaks. Adam Teicher is our guest. All right, Adam, let's get into this Chiefs team and the defensive side. We talked about that. They get an addition this weekend. How much do you think Charles Omenihu will play? Will it be sort of the Chris Jones that he'll play a little bit more than maybe expected? Do you think he'll look fresh and fast? Andy Reid talked about that he's kept himself in good shape. So what are you thinking we'll see from Charles Omenihu on Sunday?
On Sunday, probably the Chris Jones treatment, 20, 25 snaps, something like that. And, they'll ramp up from there as they go along. He's missed 6 weeks, so I can't imagine it would be a huge workload on Sunday, but I expect him to get some things done when he's out there. The Chiefs made him a priority, gave him a lot of money. I know there's a lot of hope that he is going to make a difference. We talked about where the Chiefs defense a little while ago. We talked about where it was headed. Are they going to improve? Are they going to stagnate? Are they going to regress? And he's a big part of that. I think he needs to be. So, but it's interesting to see how much the Chiefs use him and how much he does get done.
Do you think I guess we'll find out as it goes along to see how he is used. But if he ultimately starts opposite of George Karlaftis, but the one thing that I think has made the Charles Omenihu absence less impactful is how good Michael Dana's been. And I don't know that I'm just like, well, Omenihu, he's back, so Dana, go do your own thing and be a reserve or a role player, because he's been, he hasn't just been solid, like he's been really good. And Steve Spagnuolo, was it last week or the week before, talked about, him being, the MVP of this defense or defensive line, whatever way he described it, just because of what he's able to do, that it's really helped. And now Charles Omenihu coming, everybody stays fresh. It also helps with like injuries. But if Dana wasn't playing the way that he's playing, then I think it would have been sort of a countdown of, oh my God, when do they get Omenihu back? When do they get Omenihu back? When do they get him? Okay, thank God they get him back. But it's sort of been like, okay, he comes back against the Chargers, but it hasn't felt like it's been some massive hole that they're missing because he hasn't been there. It feels like it's just sort of the rich get richer because of how well, Dana's played.
Yeah, it was kind of easy to forget that Omenihu wasn't playing or that he was coming back at some point. It was like, oh, yeah, he's coming back this week. But that's why, to me, it's interesting not just how much Omenihu plays, but where do his snaps come from?
Yes.
Who takes a step back? And I don't think it should be Mike Dana in any significant way, just because of how well he's played. And I don't think it will be. If they do take a few snaps from him, it's in the interest of preserving him, I would think. So, I would think that Felix, not that he played a whole lot against Denver the other night, but I would think that's where a lot of those snaps might come from, because between Karlaftis and Mike Dana right now, they've got a couple of guys who've been playing pretty well out there.
Yeah, I was pulling up the number of snaps for Felix. He played 5 in the game. It's heading in the opposite direction, it seems like, for Felix. Is there a concern there of other guys maybe just playing better than what they thought? So Felix is taking a back seat to some of the some other players or whatever. But if he's taking the snaps from Felix, then there may not even be a reason for him to be active on game day.
Well, yeah, that's the next step. If this is happening before Omenihu is back, what's going to happen when Omenihu's getting back? Why would they find extra snaps for him? So, I'm curious to see where this is headed with him, because it does seem to be heading in that direction.
Visiting with Adam Teicher from ESPN as our guest. Frank Clark's name's been out there as about a week now, a little less than that, when the news came down that he took less money just so they can facilitate his exit from Denver, and they release him. There have been at least some reports of discussions going on. Andy Reid said yesterday that there's a few things that they have to look at. They're, quote, talking through some things. How much of a chance do you give this? Is this just kicking the tires on somebody that is at least familiar with everything? And as Andy Reid said, talking through some things, what do you think he's referencing in what they may be talking through with Frank Clark?
Well, do they need him? Do they really want him? I don't know where the need is right now. We talk about, where's Omenihu's snaps going to be coming from? I mean, if Frank Clark comes in, you need to play him probably. Maybe play him some. And then, do you sit Mike Dana? Do you sit, George Karlaftis? Do you sit Omenihu? I don't know you do any of that stuff, or you want to do any of that stuff. So I don't know where the need is right now. To me, what makes the most sense if you want to bring Frank Clark back is hey, listen, we're going to put you on the practice squad for 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it is, and we'll see what things look like then. And if we have a need, or or you want to stick around or whatever, that's great. But we can't promise you anything, and so that's how I approach this. If I were the Chiefs, is love to have you around, but there's not going to be anything for you immediately, and so maybe that's the way the Chiefs end up going with this. But I just don't know where the need is right now for Frank Clark, because they've had so many guys playing well, and they got Omenihu coming back.
Yeah, that was Josh and I's read on it as well, is talking through some things, maybe talking through some things with Frank Clark that hey, we want to know your level of expectation if we are to bring you in here, because that level of expectation shouldn't be what you were the last 4 years here. It would be, we'll bring you in, but it's going to be a practice squad player, because they had 2 defensive ends that are on the roster that were inactive, healthy scratches, before the Denver game, Neil Farrell and B.J. Thompson. Like they've got guys there. Now, not the experience of Frank Clark, but point being, like, even if you were to bring in Frank Clark for one of those guys, well, Omenihu's already taken the spot of one of those guys. You're not going to cut B.J. Thompson and hope that he can clear waivers or whatever to try to get him on the practice squad. So it would be and Malik Herring is, played 20 snaps, and we talked about FAU. Like, you're right, the need, I don't know what's there, but it would have to be that, hey, look, Frank, I don't know if anybody's calling him, because he's not nearly the player that he was a couple of years ago. I'm not sure that the phone is ringing off the hook, and it might be something to where he just sits around and, a Justin Pugh off the couch to starting an NFL game if something like that happens. But to me, it's a bring you in, put you on the practice squad, and you've been around, and you're great in the locker room. The people love you. Boy, the work you did with Karlaftis last year, you could maybe work with FAU and do some of those things, but we're talking through some things because he's not going to come in here and contribute all that much unless there's attrition that then we get down to that level and Frank Clark is then needed.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's the best way for the Chiefs to go on this. And, I don't know if Frank Clark would be interested in that kind of thing. Maybe he'd rather hang around and wait for another job to come open with somebody else. He could do that on the Chiefs practice squad as well as he could just sitting out. So, but he was a big part of this team. And not everybody can go from being a big part of the team to being a practice squad guy. That's not for everybody. And my sense is Frank Clark could handle that, but I don't know if he wants to. So, there's a lot that goes into this.
Yeah, I mean, he's already made a ton of money, and he's got to know that a big contract's not around the corner, that it's going to be, do you want to keep playing? If you're going to continue playing, it's essentially for the money you've already made. It's life-changing money for us, to play another couple of years in the NFL for Frank Clark. But for him, it's not. He's already made the life-changing money. He's made, 9 figures in his career. So, playing a couple of more years for $1 million is just simply playing because you want to play football, and you're on the veteran minimum essentially there. It's just a matter of, do you want to play anymore? And if you do, how much is it worth it? And what city do you want to be in by being either a deep reserve or a practice squad guy? I mean, do you want to head to, L.A. and live back there? You want to move back to Kansas City where you were for 4 years, where your kids were going to school and were enrolled in school until, you moved to Denver for a little bit and now head back. And technically, if you're looking at a family, at least from my perspective as a family, would be, all right, the kids only missed like a month and a half of school in Kansas City around their grade and the kids that they were sort of, friends with. So there's a lot of other things outside of just football that sort of go into these decisions when you've already made your money and you're set for life. and you're looking at, hole 17 and 18 of your career.
Yeah, I keep going back to this with Frank Clark. I remember asking him when he took a pay cut in 2022 so he could stay with the Chiefs. And he was so convicted about wanting to stay. Why wouldn't I want to stay? I love it here. My guy Chris Jones is here. I love it here. Now, things may have changed. That was a couple of years ago now, and certainly he and the Chiefs couldn't agree on a price for this season. So maybe his mindset has changed. My sense is he would want to come in here and be a minor role player and or a practice squad guy for the time being. But maybe I'm wrong on that because things can change in a couple of years. I just remember how without hesitation, he was so convicted that, 2 years ago, yes, I want to be here. I want to be a part of this. And so maybe he will again, and who knows? He could get another ring out of it, maybe, if he does.
Absolutely. Adam Teicher's our guest. All right, Adam, the Chargers coming up this weekend. What do you think happens in that game if you've got an early score in mind for Chiefs and Chargers, 325 at Arrowhead?
Yeah, if I'm having trouble figuring out where the Chiefs are going, I'm really having trouble figuring out where the Chargers are going, okay?
No kidding.
Well, that game last night, I have no idea what to make of that game against the Cowboys last night. So I just know that you always need a crowbar to separate these two teams at the end of a game. 5 of the last 6 were by 6 points or less, 2 of those in overtime. The other one was that game where the Chiefs didn't play any of their guys, so it doesn't count. And the last time that this game was resolved by more than one score, Phillip Rivers was quarterbacking for the Chargers. Damian Williams scored 2 touchdowns for the Chiefs. So it's been a long time. So I don't know why you'd expect anything different. I'll take a close game, and I'll take the Chiefs to win. I've been picking high scores and getting burned by that week by week. So I'm going to go a little lower this time. I'm going to go Chiefs 20-17, somewhere in that range.
20-17, Chiefs over the Chargers coming up this weekend. Adam, you're the man. Really appreciate it as always. Enjoy the game. We'll be watching and listening to the coverage and everything, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
All right, good stuff, Jason. Talk to you then.
Absolutely. There's Adam Teicher from ESPN, our Chiefs insider each and every week. We have him on. He's presented by Twin Peaks. Step up your lunch game at Twin Peaks. Enjoy light yet hearty combos put together for you, available at an awesome price, featuring savory soups, crisp salads, and a variety of sandwiches to satisfy your every craving. Enjoy your next lunch break with Twin Peaks. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. We'll talk with Todd Lebo in the noon hour, Fact or Fiction, Braden Gull, college football with us, and about 1:20 or so. More Zone next. Well, the NFL season continues to be going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook hooking new customers up with an offer that's even stronger. You bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. How about that? Doesn't even matter if that bet comes through or not. You get that $200 in bonus bets instantly. And DraftKings isn't stopping there, because all customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game day this October. See in a couple days what that sweetener offer is for this coming Thursday night football. Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code 810WHB. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's code 810WHB, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Kansas. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportbook.draftkings.com/football. Terms on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort.
Todd Liebel will join us coming up at noon after his 2-week excursion around the world. We'll play a little Fact or Fiction with Todd Liebel. Thank you to Adam Teicher joining us in the previous couple of segments. Braden Gall coming up at 1:20. We'll talk some college football with Braden Gall. We'll talk some college football with Todd Liebel as well. And tomorrow, Big 12 Media Days for a little basketball. The show will be down there. I'll be down there talking with different coaches, players, whoever. Also, we'll have our weekly conversation with Cynthia Freeland, and we'll hear from the Chiefs as well in their press conference. So tomorrow, a jam-packed day, mixing in some NFL football and some college basketball, as there are 4 Big 12 teams in the top 25, 2 in the top 10, KU number 1, Houston number 7. So some newcomers to the Big 12, more coaches to talk to at the Big 12 Media Day.
I was talking to Lebo about it, just kind of getting our plan for tomorrow. I was like, yeah, it goes longer now because I keep adding teams. Like the Big 12 Media Days keep getting, bigger.
What are you doing, man? What's going on?
It's the bigger 12 Media Days.
Yes, that's right.
Not the biggest 12 yet, because there's still a chance.
Yep, it's a bigger number of 12s than in the past. Is it surprising to you that this year for the Chiefs through 6 weeks is the widest point differential, point scoring margin than any Patrick Mahomes year? Because 2018 felt like they were blowing teams out of the water to come out of the gates.
1,000%. Yeah, you would have gotten me on that one also, because obviously the way we've talked about this team, we're talking about what's not happening from the side of the ball we're more excited by, or that's been the calling card. And I kind of alluded to this earlier, talking about, we even touched on it yesterday with innovative geniuses and all of that. That's usually offense. Well, what pushes the evolution of the NFL? It's the offense. What changed the Chiefs' fortunes? Quarterback. Yeah. I mean, the Chiefs franchise got a whole lot better when Andy Reid got to town. And Alex Smith was tremendously stabilizing. And the offense was better. But the fortunes of football in Kansas City changed forever when they got the quarterback. I love Chris Jones. He did not change the direction of the franchise. Mahomes did. So I think we are intellectually honest in the way that we go, our first read as media or as fans, our first read is going to be to check on Mahomes and to check the offense. Mm-hmm. But I think that we are approaching now an exercise in appreciating defense a little more, because as weird as these games have felt, and as we've mentioned many times, the closest of these, that wasn't the loss to the Lions, obviously, is a game they could have won by 7 more points if Mahomes is a little more selfish and a little less smart in that moment. I mean, that really doesn't feel like it's been a year of blowouts for the Chiefs.
I joked about my tweet of Chiefs scoring 23 against the Jets and the other teams, and then you put the asterisk there, and I counted, I think it's up to now 29 different people that have responded to my tweet that have said, well, they could have had 30. Well, Mahomes slid down with the first down inside the 5-yard line. Could have had 30.
I feel less original now.
Yeah, well, that's fine. You were one of the first. You weren't the first, but you were one of the first. Then I got a really odd one, because you mentioned that Mahomes less or more selfish and less smart and just score there. One of the responses was, if it wasn't for the media bullying him into sliding before the goal line, then they would have had 30. I'm like, listen, and I don't think it was sarcastic. I actually think that person believes that.
So, okay, but let's try to get in their head then. It's a dangerous game. But how is the media bullying Patrick Mahomes there? We talked about Jerick McKinnon sliding plenty, but not in a bullying way. I don't remember Mahomes ever not doing it when he should have. Am I missing something?
I'm trying to find the actual tweet. You're gonna have to click their. Right.
You're gonna have to click their bio also, just to see if they're a Dolphins or a Bengals fan. Then it's not a joke. If they're a Chiefs fan, maybe it is.
I'll find it eventually.
If they're just slinging NFTs, it's a spam bot.
That's right.
It just sort of missed its target.
It could have been.
Do they have great hints on fixed sports games that you can bet on? Been getting a lot of those lately. Thanks, Twitter.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't find it right now. Maybe they erased it. I don't know.
Shame.
It's like what are you talking about, man? Yeah. Oh, well.
I'll bully that guy.
Yeah, that's right. God, there's so many of the. I'm scrolling through all of the. Well, they could have 30. They could have had 30. Well, they could have got to 30.
Do you think he used the word bullied for sure?
I don't remember what it was.
I need one word to really get this search off, other than Mahomes. I guess I could just search for Mahomes. Did he say Mahomes?
I don't remember. Dang it! I just sort of glossed over it because I'm like, that's dumb.
Okay, I'm gonna try looking.
I do like this one that just said, "Hey, Chiefs took a knee on that last drive." By the way, thanks. I appreciate it, man.
Is there any chance this is like a Tyler Durden situation? Did you send this from your burner to yourself?
I think it might have just...
didn't know about it.
I think it might have been erased. I don't know. But either way, when I read it, I was just like, what the hell does the media have to do with him sliding?
Mahomes is so good, he deleted that tweet for him.
That's right. Hey, you don't want to go down this road. That's just dumb. Todd Lebo next.
Tumbling down, pledging their love to the ground.
Way out west, there was this fella I want to tell you about. Fella by the name of
Todd Lebo.
At least that was the handle his loving parents gave him. But he never had much use for it himself. This
Lebo.
He called himself
Lebo.
Sometimes there's a man. Well, he's the man for his time and place. He fits right in there. And that's
Todd Lebo.
Kansas City.
I hate Lebo.
La 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 la.
All right, Todd Lebo hanging out with us here in this noon hour on a Tuesday. We'll talk with Braden Gall, some college football insider coming up about 1:20, ESPN Radio and Athlon Sports. Interesting weekend of college football. Todd Lebo hanging out with us here. Todd, how are you? You look like you've been in Europe for a couple of weeks.
Is that what it looks like?
Come back with a European beard.
Just a beard.
I don't know.
I just didn't shave for a couple of weeks. And my wife hasn't
I've heard
made
they don't
me
do that
shave
over
it
there.
yet. Nah, I think people do shave, but maybe not. I don't know.
Male and female. I don't know. It's
all of it. All of it. But yeah, I didn't.
Watched
I
Home
didn't
Alone.
shave
It's
my face.
You know, they asked, is it true that female chicks in French don't shave their pits? That's what Buzz
go to
asked.
France.
That's what Buzz asked.
So no, didn't test that.
Josh?
You look rugged, Lebo.
I'm ready for anything.
Also, and my pits are like a Ken doll in here. You know that.
Well, you went to France, so you would know.
Yeah, I did.
You tested that theory.
Did I shave in Europe at any point? I think I may have.
No, nor should you.
Hard to remember for sure.
Should you shave on vacation? Like if it's vacation, like should you shave? Like you should be enjoying yourself.
I only have a certain tolerance for the neck beard sort of growth. Eventually, if I just line that up, I can live with a few different beard configurations.
I trimmed up the neck over there, but the rest I just let it go.
But it looks good.
Do you think there's any salt in here, or is it all pepper? A lot of
It's
salt
all
in
pepper.
there.
You got that hair like Rick Pitino. Just grows in straight jet black.
Oh man, if you
at
come in
70
tomorrow
years
with
old,
it just jet black, I would really like that a lot.
That would be awesome. Pitino's never had it. He's never gone gray. It's weird.
It's really
How
incredible.
did it happen?
Yeah, it's genes. It's what it is. It's just the genes that he was born with, but jet black hair his whole life, nary a gray hair.
I know. I don't mean to put the tiger on the table and yell at it. I know you're trying to make jokes, insinuating that maybe he uses hair dye.
No, I'm not.
But vampires do not gray. So
it is great.
Might not. It's
Never
good to be
seen a
home, though.
great
We had a
vampire.
great trip, but I'm happy to be back in the good old U.S. of A.
they don't even have college American football over there.
It was not easy.
I guess they do in Ireland every once in a while now, I suppose, right?
It was not easy to, I couldn't watch anything. Nothing.
The Cambridge Knights. How did they do this weekend in college football?
I was on text strings. My texts were working.
Oh, really?
And that's how I followed football.
Have you seen any of the Red River rivalry?
I've watched it, of course, twice since I got home. But, and I could see on Twitter highlights. You know, you could watch highlights. Those weren't some things you would try to watch, and it would say you can't watch this in your area or something. But any highlights of that game, I was able to see those highlights, and there was lots of that out there, so I was good. But my experience of following that game happened during I signed us up for an experience, we'll call it a pasta making class.
Oh, nice.
So we were my 5 people, me, my wife, my 2 kids, and my daughter's fiance, Nick. We were in this little town called Meta, which is near Sorrento, in this kitchen run by Gio and Sacha.
Yeah, Gio.
You know, a man and a woman who taught us how to make pasta, and then these people from Iowa, from Washington, D.C., but they were Iowegians and Iowa State fans. So the class started at 7. The game started at 6. So I knew what was going on. I knew there was an interception early. I knew we had scored. I knew there was a blocked punt and all this. And I got to the class, and my wife was kind of like, she didn't tell me, listen, put your freaking phone away. But so I had my apron on, and I had a little pocket in the front. I was looking at the phone a lot, just checking the thing, checking the text, looking at the deal, and the winning and da-da-da-da. And then we're, get your hands in the dough. You're making pasta. You're learning all about the sauces, and you're doing and it was a great. I couldn't recommend this evening more highly on fun. It was great.
Next time I'm there, I'll do that.
People were great, and we made pasta, and we made 3 pasta dishes, and we drank wine and all this, and the whole time I'm like, then eventually I'm like, they're toast. They're going to lose this game because they had given the lead up, and Texas kicked a field goal, and I'm like, they're toast. It's minute 17. Maybe they'll tie it up, whatever. And now we're eating the food. And so we're at the end of this thing. And at one point, the guy, he had said, are you interested in something on your phone? I said, listen, my wife's like, he's got a problem.
Sir, am I not keeping your interest over here? You're not having enough fun?
I said, here's the deal. We got a big game going, okay? So we're finishing up the eating part, and the girl, she didn't go to Iowa State. She went to Simpson College, but she loved Iowa State. She's from Des Moines. And her man went to Iowa State, but he didn't like sports nearly as much as she did. So she was on board with hating Texas, okay?
Nice.
And I'm like, oh, my God. I get Lance text me, incredible play, touchdown, 16 seconds to go, Gabriel, whatever, da-da-da. And I'm like, holy, we're going to maybe win this game. And then, there was a Hail Mary at the end. And I finally, my other text string, BV, it's called, Brent Venables. That's my Sooner people. And
you and Brent just texting during the game?
No, and so it was like woohoos and blah, blah, blah. And they knew I wasn't watching, so were giving more details than normal. Normally we're all watching. It's just, great, blah, blah, and I get little details. So I'm like, we effing won the game, right? And so eventually, as we're all coming down from the meal and my excitement of Red River, I taught the Italians horns down.
Oh, nice.
So good.
So, and we took a picture of the whole group, everyone horns down. I sent it back to the BV group. I didn't tweet it out or anything, but
no, that would have been a 15-yard penalty.
I told the guy, I said, "Here's the deal. Like, who's your soccer team?" He's a AS Roma fan. He was from Rome. I said, "So like this is like you're playing Lazio, okay? You hate these people. This is." He got that. He understood that this was the hated rival, and this was a big ass game, right? And so we won. So I told him I said, "This is what they do with their hand. We put our hand down." And so we did horns down. We got a picture of the whole class.
It's great
with the horns down. It was good.
They can never go to Texas now.
No,
you just took a
they're done.
lovely Italian couple. You just said, one of these states you may never get into the borders
I
of.
didn't send it out to the world, so they're not in the pick for everyone to see. It's just on our little personal text string and phone and everything. But it was as memorable a Red River shootout as I'll ever have in my life, because I've had memorable ones when I was there, when they almost always lost. 1 for 5.
I was going to say, what is your record at the game?
1-4, 1 for 5.
And what's your record making pasta in Italy?
And so at
Every
one point,
year.
I hope this doesn't come back to haunt me. At one point during the class, I told my daughter, if they freaking win this game, we're coming to Italy every year. And then so we're not doing that, but I did say it.
But now next year, just to test it,
We'll test it.
you must make pasta, drink wine, and not watch the game and have your friends text
Just
you
text me what's
along
going
the way.
on.
Yeah, see if it's about the geographic location or the activity.
I have a buddy in Louisville, diehard sports fan, diehard U of L fan. He won't watch the U of L UK game. He can't do it. He'll go to a park with his friends or with his kids. He'll do anything. It's like a family day on that day that is those 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after. So that 3-hour time frame or whatever. Can't do it. Won't watch it. Then he'll know the score. Then he'll watch it back. But it just took over his life. And he's like, it's not worth it anymore. It's just one game. I can't do it. If they're 1-0, maybe that's your strategy
When
now.
I was a freshman in college, I did not go to the game. I came home that weekend for some reason. I don't know why I didn't go. So I didn't go. Of course, Oklahoma won that game easily. The next 3 years when I was in school, Oklahoma lost all 3 of them. I was there every time. Texas was awful. Check the records from 1989 to 91. They were just a middling SEC or a Southwest Conference team. Oklahoma was not great. We were on probation. We cheated. We did a lot of things. Okay, but we were good. I mean, we were 9-3 or something. 8-4, things like that. We were a fine team. Always favored. Lost every game, generally in heartbreaking fashion. Missed field goal at the end to win one of them. Texas last second touchdown. Texas beat Oklahoma 10-7 one day. Didn't have an offensive touchdown. They ran a fumble back. Okay, so that was my time, and I was like, I'm not going back to this game. Eventually, in 2004, on our college football trip, we went. So Lance had been there. He went the freshman year, and he had gone another time, I think, when he was in law school or something. And my other friends, they had never been, obviously. So we're like, we're going to go somewhere that's cool and fun. So we went down there, and Oklahoma won 12-0, shutout. Adrian Peterson was a freshman, ran for 200 and some yards, beat Vince Young and Derek Johnson. 0-4 Derek Johnson, by the way, against Oklahoma.
Wow, have you told him that to his face?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely have, right here in this building.
Live to tell the tale.
And so I was like, all right, maybe the thing is broken, right? So 2008, my brother and I decided we're going to take my dad to the game. My dad grew up loving Oklahoma. He's from Oklahoma, but didn't go to school there and had never been to the game. So as like a, I think we gave him for Father's Day a card that says we're taking you to OU, Texas, right? So my brother and I take my dad to OU, Texas, 2008. 2008, Oklahoma goes and plays for the national title. This was the year that Tech beat Texas. Oklahoma beat Texas Tech, and Texas beat Oklahoma, and we were at that game, 45-35. Oklahoma turned them over freaking 5 times and only lost by 10 points, and gave up a touchdown on a kick return. We were up like 11 or something, gave up a kick return right before half for a touchdown.
So that was 07 then.
That was 08.
08, yeah.
08 season.
Okay.
07, Oklahoma won. I wasn't at that game. Okay.
I'm just trying to think of the year that Kansas didn't have to play Texas, Oklahoma, or Texas Tech.
In 08, they
not
played,
that it mattered for them.
In 08, they
starting
played,
out like
they played all
11
of
and 0
them
or something,
and lost to all of
really?
them. But in 07 they didn't play them.
They didn't play them at all.
But in 08, so we were down this great day, beautiful, just sun-kissed, awesome state fair, corn dogs, the whole 9 yards. We go out and Oklahoma's winning, and then of course things happen, the kick return, the turnovers, all this stuff. They lose the game. It's a great time. It was wonderful to be there with my dad and my brother. It was a wonderful time. But I ain't been back because now that told me 1-4, go to Italy. I guess. I don't know.
And they're 1-0 in the red sauce rivalry.
That's right. They're 1-0 when we made red sauce.
So
and
pasta.
Like that. We did it. So
do like the red sauce rivalry.
That was a wild way to take the game in. I had almost always. My daughter's getting married next year in October, which I'm not a fan of October weddings or whatever, but she did.
My daughter's getting married in October, which I'm not a fan of.
Your daughter getting married in October? What's that about?
But
you're like, Dylan, come back and mark that later. That one, I think that's going to sound
You're
worse.
like the college football guy, and your daughter's getting married.
It sounded like you just weren't a fan of the wedding happening.
No, I'm a great fan.
I know this.
But she said they're going to get married in October, and I'm like, but she did say we're not doing it because the Red River Shootout is always the first Saturday or second Saturday, whatever. But they're doing it at the end of October. So I'm quite positive that'll be at OU at Mizzou, probably.
Yeah.
And
just as long as you're not making pasta, I feel good about that game.
Do they have a caterer yet for the wedding?
But they did. It is funny that like she knows how much like this game means to me, and intentionally was like, well, we're not going to do it the first couple of Saturdays. We'll make sure it's later to do it now.
Do it Halloween.
We'll see how it's
going.
Yeah, it could be. Well,
people
I think
dressed
they're
up
doing
as
the
like
last
the dead
Saturday.
bride.
They're doing the last Saturday, and it won't be actual Halloween because I think it's whatever 29th or something maybe next year. Anyways, but they were like, maybe we should do a dress-up wedding. I said, I don't care. Just make sure like maybe OU's playing at 11 that day. I don't know.
Maybe you dress up the event a little cheaper than what it would have been. I don't know. Maybe you dress that up. Maybe you dress up the pocketbook, the final tally. Maybe dress that up a little bit for my eyes.
But it was weird to be over there and to like you couldn't watch anything like YouTube TV, ESPN Plus. None of those things would work. You couldn't watch it. Now we illegally watched the Chiefs games on some sort of a thing that my son knows about.
Like
probably all the
like
kids
First
know
Row
about.
Sports or Front
One
Row
of
Sports.
those things. We didn't have a VPN either. If I'd have done a VPN, I probably could have set something.
I could have set a VPN up on your phone.
I didn't want to deal with it because I didn't want to have the phone on during the pasta class.
You don't want to be on YouTube TV in Italy if you can help it. That feels reasonable to me.
No, but we did watch. The Chiefs played at 3:25, which was 10:25 over there. We watched
AM, PM.
So we watched. I didn't watch the whole Vikings game live. Watched 3/4 of it, and it felt like they were okay. Now Thursday Night Football that started at 2 a.m. Did not watch that, but I did set my alarm at 4:45 to just kind of see what was going on in the fourth quarter. And my alarm goes off, and I look real quick. It's 16-0. I'm like, well, this game's over. And then like 2 seconds later, 16-8. Well, all right, I better turn this on then. So then I was able to do that myself on the phone, and I watched the last 4 minutes of that live while we were there just to kind of know what was going down. But I'll tell you what was super weird. We were in Sorrento at one point. There was a weird kind of schedule going on with European football because they're in Euro League qualifying right now, so that was like a little off schedule. So they're like Italy was playing Malta the day we left, and so like the weekend before they had games. So we were down in Sorrento, which is near Naples. But it's not like you just walk to Naples. You have to go across the bay or take this train all the way around, whatever. And so we're going to maybe go watch Napoli play. They had won the league last year for the first time since Diego Maradona was there. I mean, this region, there were banners everywhere, Maradona, all this stuff, right? We're like, maybe we'll go watch that. It was at 8:45 at night. I'm like, we're not going over there trying to get to this stadium at 8:45 at night and then trying to get on this train to come back because I think the train stopped running about midnight or 1. So we're not going.
That's a dangerous game.
We're not going.
So we got the losing in one of those.
We're not going to go. And so I think we're watching on TV or something. So we're walking down the street coming back from dinner, and it's like 9 o'clock. And there's this bar, restaurant, whatever. They call everything a bar over there. And the game is on, these two TVs outside. All these people are standing outside watching. Florence was playing at Napoli, and it's 1-0 Fiorentina, whatever. I'm like, all right, whatever. We'll go upstairs. There was a TV in this Airbnb. Clicking through all the channels. Can't find the game. 8 channels we turned on that had these panels of people. It was like not Manningcast, because Manningcast, they can show plays.
Yeah.
This was just people watching the game, talking about the game.
On
like
terrestrial TV?
8 channels. Huh. Because the games over there are on like DAZN or Sky Sports Plus, and we didn't have that here. So I was like, this is unbelievable. Channel up. Look, here's a hot Italian lady, an old coach, obviously, a former player, a dude, a writer. You could kind of like pick them out. Here's
It's the Ted Lasso panel that Roy Kent starts on.
But the Ted Lasso panel had like 3 people. There were 9 people on these panels, and like sometimes a band. And they just had the score up there, and they would have some kind of descriptions of the game. And I don't know Italian. I did some Duolingo. I know a couple of words, but not enough to follow this. But there were so many channels, and at one point, this was I think maybe this wasn't national. This was more the regional Naples area television, and they we heard someone in the building cheer in our Airbnb. It was like an apartment place, and then. Like 4 seconds later, the score went up 1-1. Napoli had scored, and then they start dancing on the screen. Well, here's the deal: second half, Florence won 3-1. Oh, it looked like they were on a funeral march on this show. They were all so down that Napoli had. I don't think they're going to win the league again, but it was a weird way to watch the games happening over there. So we didn't get to see it live, but it was a great trip, wonderful trip, and you know, listen. You got your phone. You can get your texts. You can check the score apps and get some highlights on Twitter.
And I do wonder, like, you know, when you're over there, like how much you're able to keep track at all. I know you said getting texts and things like that, but, you know, as this week goes along, like one of the things we talked about yesterday, and we're going to do Fact or Fiction. Maybe this will be a part of a Fact or Fiction for Josh. I'm not sure. But I know that Chris Kleiman likes Will Howard. And I know at the beginning of the season when it was Jalen Daniels was preseason Big 12 Player of the Year, and there was a lot of consternation out of Manhattan of, well, why isn't it Will Howard? Will Howard should be the preseason Player of the Year, and this sort of going back and forth. And we might watch a game this year where neither of them will be out on the field because Jalen Daniels' health and Avery Johnson just made the team look different.
Yeah.
It had the Colin Klein, it had that K-State feel of, you know, 13 carries, 9 passing attempts for Avery Johnson, 8 of 9 through the air, 13 for 90 on the ground. And just you add that extra element, and it's not like he's, you know, throwing left-handed. It's like, well, actually, I think you're right-handed. You may want to do something else. Like, it's not the old running of like, you know, in the 90s in triple option.
He's a different look, you know, because
he looks 12.
Will Howard looks like Colin Klein. They're like the same size guy, and they do a lot of quarterback run stuff with him. This is a different kind of player. He's still pretty slight. He will get bigger as he sticks around and hits the weight room and does all those things as you kind of grow up. But yeah, it was a different look. I know this. You know, you sit there and watch the K-State Missouri game. You were happier when he wasn't on the field because when he was on the field, you're like, well, look at this. This is a little different thing.
Well, I was wondering when Missouri would get an idea that when he was on the field, he wasn't actually handing off.
Yeah.
That he was keeping it himself. That eventually Missouri would get that memo. But every time it's like, nah, this time he's going to hand it. Oh,
this will be the time.
Got me. This time he's going to. Again.
This is the first real chunk of action he's gotten. So now here's the deal.
And significant action in a game where
now there'll be tape though, and you know, he's not going to run for 5 touchdowns every game. Okay.
I mean, he's 1 for 1. Best way to predict the future is looking at the past.
The one game.
So
at the one game, but he does kind of change things with the look for sure because he is. I mean, listen, Will Howard's fine.
Yeah.
He's a little more Colin Klein-y. Colin Klein wasn't some fast guy. This kid is fast, and he's much smaller. He's tall-ish, but he's not 6'5" tall. But he's super fast, and I can't wait to see what they'll do, you know, how they'll break this thing up, because they didn't really tell him he was going to play that much. I mean, you saw the clips after the game. He's like, how much did you know you're going to I didn't really know. He didn't know what was going to happen. He was ready, because you're always ready, but then they just got in the game, and they went, and it was something to see. They're going to host TCU this week, right? Yeah, TCU.
Yeah, no, they're hosting TCU.
And TCU has been, I don't know, up and down this year.
I mean,
TCU's been okay.
That line's dropped a point already. K-State was 7.5. Now they're 6.5.
And TCU last week had quarterback issues as well. Chandler Morris is hurt or something. They played a freshman. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on in this league.
Yeah.
This league, if there have been so many quarterback issues everywhere in the league, if you got like Oklahoma right now is on top of the league because they've had the dude play all the games.
I was going to say they've had quarterback issues outside of Oklahoma and really Texas. Quinn Ewers.
They haven't had him, but I mean, like Kansas had obviously the issues with Daniels back, and there's not an issue with Will Howard, but they're playing two guys. Tech lost their quarterback during the game. It looks like maybe Oklahoma State is finally saying Alan Bowman's their quarterback because they were playing three guys every other snap before. TCU's had some quarterback issues.
I mean, UCF has had quarterback issues all year with injuries and trying to get guys back. And
I think West Virginia's had a real nice year because they really haven't. Garrett Green. Gilbert Grape.
Gilbert Godfrey.
He's been good for him.
I think I should throw the ball.
But, there's just been trouble all around. And every time I would go through back in the day, we'd look at who's going to be good in the league, who's bringing a quarterback back, and what else they got around them. That's the coaching quarterback combinations. And, that's why you liked what was happening at KU and K-State because they're bringing those back. But it just hasn't been solid the whole time with them and because of whatever reason.
It's why I thought that Cincinnati would be better than what they are, because, I thought Emory Jones, was a good quarterback, except for I don't think Scott Satterfield's all that good.
Right.
And, they had a pretty significant downgrade from their previous coach to now their current coach. And he was going to get fired at his previous spot, and he just beat the firing squad and reset the shot clock, as Doug Gottlieb likes to say, and went to Cincinnati. And that team has not been good. And
no, they've
UCF
worse,
has had quarterback issues, and they went through a stretch where UCF got outscored 58-0 over a 3.5 quarter stretch against Big 12 competition. When they went up 35 or 31-0 or whatever it was on Baylor from that, and then the next week after that Baylor game when they were just getting absolutely punked by Kansas at the beginning, it was like 50-something-0 stretch for UCF.
Not good.
In that
and we
Baylor
finally got
a
new versus old win this week. Houston with the Hail Mary.
Yeah, Houston
took a Hail Mary.
Yeah, it took a Hail Mary for the new squad to finally get one win.
I mean, listen, it took a miracle for Baylor to come back on UCF too. I mean, there were some things, but it looked like we were going to another week without having one of the new beat the old. And listen, we can't make these judgments right now on these teams and these programs because it's first year in and all that. And I do think like Gus Malzahn's a good coach and UCF will be all right, but they're at Oklahoma this week, probably not going to win that game. Cincinnati's at home against Baylor. They're a favorite. Baylor's been a weird team to watch.
Yeah, the bottom 5 of the conference are the 4 newbies in Baylor.
Yeah. And it's shocked a lot of people that Baylor has kind of struggled this year.
Well, you got the head coach, Mac Rhodes, down there.
Dave Aranda.
Right? No, I thought is Aranda the head coach still?
I think so.
Oh, okay. Because I thought the AD is on record as saying that he's been meeting with the coach about how their offense is going, and he's aware of that, and they need to probably switch some things up offensively.
Maybe he'll get it done.
They need to do some things differently. I'm like, oh, cool. At least the AD's weighing in on how his head coach should run his offense.
It's been a wild year in the league. It really has. A whole bunch of stuff's been crazy, and I really thought. When we'd come in here and Mick would be in here and would kind of joke with him about Oklahoma State, he wouldn't talk about it. Mm-hmm. Well, how much different do they feel after 2 weeks?
Kidding.
They beat K-State and KU, and now they're feeling pretty good about themselves after they couldn't get anything going. And Iowa State, had a dreadful appearance against Iowa, and they lost the game against Ohio, and they got boat raced by Oklahoma. But now they're 3-1 in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to be done here. Obviously, the league is not over. There's plenty of football. Some teams have played 4 games. Most everyone's played 3 games. There's a lot of football to be played left in this league.
And it's also kind of when you play somebody. I mean, Iowa State playing Oklahoma State when they were just lost
that's a help.
is beneficial, where they may have figured something out against K-State. And it certainly feels that way, the way they played the next week, this past week against Kansas, that maybe Oklahoma State's figuring some things out.
With Jalen Daniels as well. Like, if he gets healthy, you certainly would. And I do think Jason Bean's very good. I mean, he was not good against Texas. That was a tough one. Texas is a very good team. But he wasn't awful. He turned the ball over a couple of times last week. They scored a lot of points, though.
Texas also, he found out that morning he was playing.
Yeah,
I mean, he didn't take any of the
prepared.
first-team reps.
Yeah,
I mean, he played better this last week, but
would you
he's
rather,
still not
if
Jalen Daniels.
You ask any coach, would you rather play Kansas with Jason Bean or Jalen Daniels? They'll all say they'd rather play Jason Bean. Now, so, like Oklahoma's going to Kansas in a couple of weeks. If Jalen Daniels is healthy, that feels a whole lot different.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's an offense that scores a lot of points and does a lot of stuff and will be even better probably with him. Oklahoma's in great position right now because they've beaten Texas and they've beaten Iowa State, who's in second place right now. They've gone on the road and they won at Cincinnati. They've done some good things, but you don't write them down in marker and say you're going to be in Dallas. Feels like they probably will because they're not just 3-0. They're 3-0 and they've looked good in their games and they look way different than they did last year. And last year they lost in the league. They lost 49-0 to Texas. And that was when they had no Dylan Gabriel. They literally ran Wildcat all game.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the ugliest games you ever saw. And they got beat bad by TCU. And it's the game Dylan Gabriel got hurt in. And TCU was great last year. But every other game they lost last year was by a score or less. So they very well could have been much better than what they ended up being, 6-7 or whatever. But they didn't. But now this year, they've turned the corner a little bit, year or two of a program. They're a different deal. Will they be in the title game? I think they probably will. Are they going to be undefeated? I'd still be shocked. Their schedule's good. They don't play K-State. That's a help because K-State is a program that gives them trouble for sure. And they've already played Texas. They're going to go to BYU. Looked like a really kind of scary game before. Could still lose it, but BYU didn't look that great right now. No. So that's another roadie. Oklahoma State looks better now than they did 2 weeks ago. But that game is at home, I think. It'll be the final bedlam. They'll probably be all hyped up for that. They should be kind of okay there. But
Oklahoma State's at Oklahoma State.
Oh, it is. That's right.
Stillwater.
That is Stillwater. So that'll be big. That's 2 weeks from now. 3 weeks from now.
It's UCF at home being Oklahoma here.
And then
UCF
KU.
at home, at KU, at Oklahoma State, West Virginia at home, at BYU, at Oklahoma for TCU to close the year.
Yeah, on the Friday, little Black Friday game.
Little Friday game.
Little Black Friday affair on that one.
So. Yeah, I mean, look, the bye week for KU, hopefully Jalen can get healthy, and then that game against Oklahoma, and K-State goes from, and I know we got to get to Fact or Fiction, but K-State goes from, are they going to lose at Oklahoma State? Or, are they going to lose at Texas Tech? That Tech's a much better team at home with Joey McGuire, historically last year and change. If they lose that game, all of a sudden they're 3-3 on the season. They're 1-2 in conference.
Now.
Yeah, now they've got TCU and Houston back-to-back games at home that they should win to then set up what would be a 4-1 K-State in conference heading to Texas. Yeah. To face off against what would be a 4-1 Texas team, more than likely.
Yeah.
They're in which could be for a chance to, depending on what goes on in Lawrence with K-State and KU, but maybe a chance to a winner was on and has the driver's seat to face off against what seems to be Oklahoma.
But a lot of big games to go.
Absolutely, because Texas was off this last week.
Yeah.
And they've got Houston and BYU, so they should also be 4-1 going into that Kansas State game. That'll be a fun one. Let's get to Fact or Fiction. We'll do that on the other side of the break. More Zone next. Fact or fiction time with Todd Lebo. Let's go ahead and get into it, shall we? Let's.
I'll go first.
He's been gone for a while. Let's let Todd go first.
I think we should, and I think we should also make you aware of the game within the game today.
Oh, there's a game within a game. Okay, that means they'll find a way to make sure that two people have a chance to win, and that would be either Dylan or Todd. Game within the game. Go ahead.
The
Josh.
game within the game today involves the mini game. Does Lebo know?
Oh.
It's
Bono.
We could have called it Lebo knows, but does Lebo know? And there'll be some things that may or may not have happened while Lebo is out of the country. And obviously, I don't want it to be complete layups for you, Jason, and you, Dylan.
Okay, great.
So I'm pretty content with my extra little spin in this edition.
I paid
of
quite
Fact
a
or
bit of
Fiction.
attention to some things.
You
But
said you did, so I'm not giving layups here. These are not free
Yeah.
points. I mean this one clearly. But then after that, we'll start giving some difficult ones. So Lebo,
picture of this
Fact or
stat
Fiction?
that's up there on the TV. Just,
Jason taking a picture. Oh, I
darn
missed
it.
it.
Went
Live
away.
mode. If you hit it even after it's changed, you can
know.
rewind a few seconds. I don't
know.
know if you had it or not.
Nope, I didn't. But that's okay.
Fact or fiction?
I'll put all of those numbers together myself over a few hours.
Fiction, but good example.
Will not.
You actually might. Fact or fiction, Lebo, in the first edition of Does Lebo Know? Dan Snyder started a podcast called My Snide of the Story, which he's currently only really used to give his takes on the NFC East. Lebo, fact or fiction?
I mean, that sounds like it should be a fact. I do not know if this is true, but let's go ahead and say fact.
Dylan?
I'm going to go fiction.
I think I'm going to go fiction as well.
It's fiction!
Dang it. Buffaloed me.
But if he wants to start a podcast called My Snide of the Story, the name, well, he can't have it for free. He can buy it from me for millions of dollars, but it's a good one.
Yeah, how would
I
he
like
come up with
that.
another one? That was good.
Fact or fiction, Dylan, Lebo made the right decision by not shaving his beard today.
Fact.
You're a good person to
Fact.
give this ruling on. Lebo?
Fact?
It's a fact.
Okay.
Of course
Yeah,
it's a
of course
fact.
it's a fact.
Yeah, it's a fact.
It's a good look for Lebo, a new look for Lebo. And I think it's, you know what? This is also like Lebo who works out. Like you got the, I think that's going to work
it's a
really well
workout.
with that base camp body.
Working out Lebo.
Fact or fiction that Lebo will have to go. Well, hold on. I might need to reorder this one, or else Dylan's going to get a freebie here.
Yeah, you don't
so
wanna
we're
give
going
Dylan a
to
freebie.
change this around to say, despite last night's events, Jason,
Uh-huh.
Sunday versus the Chargers will be the most dangerous team the Chiefs have faced since Week 1. I'm going to read it again because I read it poorly.
No, I get it. It's a fact.
I think that's a fact. This is a dangerous team.
Yep, fact.
It's a fact across the board.
That's a fact.
They haven't had an easy time with this bunch.
No, I mean, Adam Teicher said you need a crowbar to separate these two teams at the end of the games.
A great line. It's
The
true.
last couple of years, yeah.
It's absolutely right. Now, is this true? Back to Does Lebo Know?
Oh,
Lebo,
yeah.
fact or fiction? James Harden showed up to 76ers practice with a shaved head, wearing a custom hoodie that said "No fat suit needed." Fact or fiction?
I mean, that sounds facty. I have not stayed up on NBA Twitter.
That's why I went to the NBA. I thought you guys.
Well, let's try fact.
Lebo says it happened. Dylan?
Yeah, I'll go fact too.
I'm going to go fact. I have no idea if this happened or not, but I'm going to go fact.
It's fiction!
Dang it.
Made this one up.
Got
I
you
didn't,
all.
didn't see the hoodie. Don't think he's bald, but it really, really felt very plausible.
Because he
Yeah.
was just fat last year.
Yeah, it was.
The fat suit may have actually happened last year.
And there's been all these issues going on with ownership and blah, blah, blah.
But
anyway,
he'll still make $40 million this year or whatever. so-
roughly. If
Be a bajillion, yeah.
It's fine.
Good
not
for him.
happy, though. Who? Sometimes you're just not happy making 40.
It's tough. Dylan, fact or fiction? Italy has taken Lebo's top spot as his favorite international country vacation to visit.
Ooh.
I make it pretty broad. Like you're going to a country. His favorite international
Can
destination.
I ask what other countries he's been to?
Nope,
or
because I don't know either.
I'll go fact because it's the most recent.
This is why he had to go last on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go fact.
Lebo, fact or
No,
fiction?
it's fiction.
No, okay, well then it's
Just-
fiction.
That's the way I can
made it
just
up.
win.
Well,
So
that's it. Yeah,
smart.
I mean that's fair.
So
I
smart.
thought that was okay
It's so dumb.
because there are 3 questions in here that are just did this thing happen? But you guys have also bid on it. So
It's so smart
what's your
and so
favorite
dumb.
still then, Lebo?
I've been to.
Now he has to actually come up with
Yeah,
one.
he
No,
sure
I-
does.
I think I kind of liked what we did in Spain, a little more relaxing.
Yeah.
Oh, the history stuff in Italy was great. And I've been to. I went fishing in Canada this year. That was a
Yeah.
lot of fun, but I didn't have my whole family with me.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, then it was better. That's Canada.
So Canada
Went
won.
fishing
Spain
in
two,
Canada. No, family wasn't with me. Favorite
I
vacation
just said that so I could get a
ever.
point.
No,
so.
that's good. That you played the game well while
That's
being at a
right.
disadvantage in this game anyway. I wonder if I'll find another way to give you an advantage later. We'll have to wait and see.
Ooh.
Fact or fiction, Jason. I had to
This is
reorder
Dylan,
things
I
here.
think.
I think didn't
No,
Dylan
this
No,
is-
he
have
started
to?
that.
was
That's
Dylan,
right. Because
yeah.
I
That
finished
one
it.
was
That's
Dylan.
right.
Yep.
Jason, fact or fiction. The dust is settled, and the Chiefs are far and away the best team in the AFC.
Oh, fiction.
Far and away
Yeah,
is
that's-
too much description
yeah,
on that.
a little too
There's
strong.
not far and away. Fiction.
Fiction.
It's fiction. It's too close. It's false. You guys are on it. When we're tied at 4, I did not think this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we're back to a does Lebo know? Lebo, fact or fiction? Drake released a new album that's, stop me if you've heard this before, in desperate need of editing and sounds pretty derivative. However, he also included a song, a full song, by his 6-year-old son Adonis, which has a music video prominently featuring Drake, Adonis, and Grady Dick.
Well, I think I saw that he did put a record out, and this it has to be fiction if Grady Dick is in this thing, but I'm gonna say fact because it's so absurd. So fact.
I have to go fiction for the reasons he was saying.
Everything seemed to be fact except for the last part, which I think would be really mean for Todd to have all of these things that even those of us that are here would be like, well, 8 of the 9 things I'm pretty sure happened. I have no idea what the video is, but I feel like I would have seen the talk about Grady Dick being in this video. I don't care. I'm going fact.
Every word of that is an absolute fact.
That's a fact. Yeah, baby.
There is a fake post-game presser happening. Drake is in one chair. Adonis is in the middle chair. Grady Dick is in the other chair, bookending Adonis, who is 6, by the way.
What a world.
In his KU gear?
In his Raptors gear.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, that would.
Of course.
There's your connection point. I thought you guys might get there, but
Yeah, no, everything sounded correct except for that last part.
it's
but yeah.
really insane.
Totally.
But the thing that
Is
happens.
it a good song?
No, he's 6. It's horrible.
I've
Hey, there's-
heard I've heard nothing but bad things about the Drake new album.
It's kind of sad. It's
Yeah.
also, again, that's pretty par for the course. Drake's had some derivative records. Not a huge fan of it. Fact or fiction, Dylan? The Detroit Lions are the best team in the National Football Conference. Conference, not league. Conference. Fact or fiction?
Conference, I will go. I'm going to go fiction. I still think the Niners are pretty good.
Jason? Lions, Niners,
brain
and
is
Eagles are all
frozen.
5-1. Not that record's everything.
I am going to say that is fiction.
It's fiction.
It's
Niners are-
fiction.
I mean,
It's
the
a total
Niners had 2
fabrication.
guys get hurt. If the kid makes the kick, they're 6-0, and everyone's like, "Well, they're undefeated."
And do we know
Deshaun
what's going on
Watson
with
and Nick
Trent
Chubb
Williams?
didn't play in that game either. So
Yeah, it was their best. I've made the joke before, but they lost their best running back and their 3rd best quarterback. I mean,
It's
that's tough for the Browns.
one of the most unbelievably bad quarterback performances I ever saw in my life that won.
Yep.
Every time I was watching that game, I was like, "What is he doing?"
Have we heard about Trent Williams? You know, he came back, but then I saw he left in a boot.
No idea.
I don't know what the status of that is. That would also certainly matter.
Came back as just a lower ankle. I don't know
Okay.
if the degree, but the tweet was optimistic that it wasn't high ankle sprain.
I saw something about him leaving in a walking boot, and that's but hopefully it's been good info since then. All right, so right now I got 6 for Lebo, 6 for Jason, 5 for Dylan.
I'll go first on this
I
one.
think we're okay. You want to go first this time just for fun?
Yep.
Did you not go first? No, Dylan went first in the lines. All right, we're good. Jason, I'm glad that you get to lead off on this
Yeah.
one.
All right. Good.
Despite the fact that Mizzou beat Middle Tennessee State and K-State by a total of 7 points, Eli Drinkwitz will receive some form of raise or contract extension before the start of next season.
I'm going to see this is the thing. It's
I
like
like this one.
every single year. It's like a coach gets one if they have any success, but he just got one last year that was undeserved. So now that he would deserve one, do you then give him another one that would be deserved? But you just gave him one when it. I'm going to say fiction just because of what they just did this last offseason.
It's fact. He'll
Yeah,
flirt with another school.
Dylan?
Or he may not publicly do it, but his agent will.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go fiction.
Guys, I just think it's a fact.
Yeah,
I don't think
I
it's
should
going
have
to
gone
be
fact on that one.
I don't think it's going to be significant, but I think it's going to be nominal.
Yeah.
And I think the Twitter replies will be funny, especially if they lose, a embarrassing bowl game or something. Or a bowl game in embarrassing fashion. Well, it'll be an embarrassing bowl game.
Last year, they gave him the extension like 2 hours before the Kentucky game, and they lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm excited to just sort of be able to process through that one when that moment arrives. But that's our Mizzou question. What about
right after they beat Georgia? They deserve it.
See, then just go ahead and ink it right there.
I mean, if they're playing in Atlanta,
ink it right there. Absolutely.
Yeah, then
that's why I say that's a fact, JC, because they're gonna beat Georgia. That's a fiction.
Brock Bowers isn't playing, so it became more likely with that news of a surgery yesterday.
He'll be back.
Not from Missouri.
6 games, 6 days. He'll come back. He'd be the best healer of all time. Catch four touchdowns.
Nobody has come back from the surgery within 4 weeks.
Has he ever had the surgery?
He hasn't.
Okay, then.
But how many of those players that did not come back were also top 5 picks in the NFL draft that have a lot of millions of dollars on the line?
I would take my time if I was Brock Bowers.
Absolutely. Let's go to Todd on this one.
Lebo, Avery Johnson will take more snaps at quarterback than Will Howard from here on out for K-State.
Fact.
Remainder of the season, I should say.
Fact.
I think it's a fact. I wasn't sure that was going to be a sweep, though. I think it's a fact, and since we all said it was a fact, there's nothing really to comment on.
Last two.
So then fact or fiction, Dylan. Jalen Daniels will take more snaps at quarterback than Jason Bean from here on out for Kansas.
Ooh, I'm going to say hopefully a fact.
They got the bye and maybe more. I'm going to say fact. I think that whether it's wishful thinking or not, I'm going to go fact.
I'll say fiction. The back is just tricky.
It's tricky. I'm going to say it's a fact.
Yeah,
that
just
is a fact.
you went ahead and pencil it there, Todd.
Well, I really thought both of these were factual. Avery Johnson and Jalen Daniels and Eli. That one I'm certainly saying though through hopeful, wishful thinking for Kansas football.
By the way, just Coach Chris Kleiman has said within the last 15 minutes that there's no decision on who the starting quarterback is this week.
Well, that's good.
Prepared to play them both. We got 2 guys we can win with. There you go.
Look at that.
They do.
I think it'll turn into fact or fiction. Figure out who to play a little more. And then the final one here right now, Dylan's down a point. Lebo and Jason both have 8. Fact or fiction, 3 out of 4 AFC West teams will have at least a new head coach or quarterback entering next season.
Fact.
Can they get rid of Russell Wilson yet?
If you say fact and Dylan says fiction, you'd have a chance to tie, which would be kind of fun.
Fact.
Well, I will go fiction because they can't move on from Russ and Sean next year.
I think Dylan's right, which makes it fiction.
And you guys are assuming Andy and Patrick will both be back?
Oh.
I am. Indeed I am. Guys, this never happens.
We got a true tie.
We got an 8-8-8 tie. There were 3 questions in here that Lebo wasn't supposed to be able to get that you guys were supposed to get. There were a couple that he wasn't supposed to get that he did.
Wow.
I mean,
amazing.
It's just an incredible round of fact or fiction.
What are we going to do for a tiebreaker then? Have you even thought about it?
Well, I thought this was going to be necessary. But instead, Lebo, just don't blow this one.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know the best thing you guys have eaten over the last 3 weeks.
That's next.
Then.
All right, tiebreaker. Todd, best thing. You go first.
Best thing you've eaten. 3 weeks.
Could have been I had this wild boar dish in Florence called, I looked this up, it's ragu al singale, which is unbelievable. But when we made our food,
unbelievable, but
we made this casio de pepe sauce, which is a white sauce with no cream or butter in it. Unbelievably good. So, excellent food.
Dylan?
Pretty simple. Going after Josh's heart here. Ground turkey tacos. He will get that.
good.
No one else will.
Yeah, they're great.
Mine is a concoction from Guaranteed Foods. My wife made a chicken pot pie, but with biscuits on the top instead of the pie crust. So we had the peas and the carrots and the chicken from Guaranteed Foods and the biscuits. It was dynamite.
I love Guaranteed Foods, but you didn't try to say that in Italian. Lebo wins! He's back from overseas, and he got the dub.
Gotta win.
time. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we'll talk with Braden Gall coming up about 120 or so college football insider from ESPN and Athlon Sports. We've talked a lot about the NFL today. We've talked some college football, too. We've talked about Italy. We've talked about the Chiefs. And we'll talk some college football coming up with Braden Gall. Let's talk a little bit about it right now. Todd Lebo had mentioned what Chris Kleiman has said about the quarterbacks. And so let's actually hear about 20 minutes ago as Chris Kleiman having his press conference weekly, the big discussion around Will Howard, Avery Johnson, who's going to be the one that starts at quarterback. Are they going to go with both quarterbacks? What's the quarterback situation right now in Manhattan, Chris Kleiman?
Do you know who you're going to start at quarterback?
Do not. We have two guys that we can win with.
Two quarterbacks, playing them at the same time in games doesn't work at a lot of places. Why do you think it has worked and can work here?
Well, that's a valid point. Good question. I don't know how it's going to work out on Saturday, guys. It's Tuesday right now. And what we learned from this past Saturday is that we've seen Will play at a really high level and be successful. And then we saw Avery play at a high level and be successful. And so we feel comfortable with both guys leading this football team. I couldn't tell you. I don't have the answer. CK wouldn't have the answer if you thought it would be a 60-40, 50-50, 90-10 split. We have no idea. We're going to go through the game plan and see who, where, and what gives us the best opportunity.
Avery, he was obviously used mainly as a runner last week, but he put some good throws out there too. If you see a different defensive formation, he's in the game, would you trust him to have the whole play?
I think we feel that's why I'm excited about the fact that we have two guys that we think we can win with, in the fact of Avery is a better thrower than maybe the rap on him is because of how much we've run him. I've seen him do it an awful lot. And when healthy, Will is a really good runner.
I think it might have been foolish if Avery Johnson comes in against Mizzou in game number 3 of the season and it's like, hey, throw the ball a little bit. You utilize his strengths. And as the season goes on and the game maybe slows down a little bit more, as does happen with freshmen and sophomore and juniors and seniors and all of that, and certainly into the NFL, that last week against Texas Tech, you bring him in. He's played a number of snaps. He knows he can run the football. He's done that. The offense certainly is suited for that. And you start letting him throw a little bit too. So he gets acclimated from that standpoint. TCU this weekend, I know the line has gone down towards, it's under a touchdown now, which I may jump on because it was sitting at 7.5 and now it's at 6.5, even though the total has gone up. TCU's 3 wins in conference this year are against, 2 wins in conference this year are against the newbies. It's against Houston and BYU are their 2 wins. They lost to West Virginia and they lost at Iowa State. Now, does not mean that TCU is going to be a pushover. It's a team that's got some pedigree and, played for a national championship last year. But they are 0 for 2 against Big 12 teams that have been in the Big 12 before this year. This doesn't feel like a typical, oh my goodness, you've got 2 quarterbacks, so you don't have one. Maybe it's trying to find the positive in it. Maybe it'll blow up in their face if it's the whole 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. This feels like you do kind of have 2 quarterbacks that just can do some things differently. Now, what you don't want to get into is Avery Johnson's in the game, here comes a running play. Okay, Will Howard's in the game, Will Howard's going to be throwing the football. Okay, they need to throw the football a little bit more. Will Howard, they're controlling the clock. Here's Avery Johnson. I don't know that you want to get into that, but Will Howard's been there, done that. While he's had his struggles at times this year, still been there, done that. And how much is that, still lingering from the leg? And Avery Johnson just looks like he's just cool, calm, collected, got that young, youthful energy and blissful ignorance maybe to him that just go out there and play ball. I do believe, as Chris Kleiman said, that they've got a couple of quarterbacks they feel they can win with. I don't know if one's going to separate themselves from the other the rest of the way. And if they do, then you got to feel really good about K-State offensively, because both these guys have shown that they can play at this level.
Yeah, I think I still end up with a little bit of inherent doubt that a tag-in, tag-out quarterback duo is ever going to be as good as one guy who's the guy.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that this is that traditional, you got two so you don't have one. I think if you look at the rest of K-State's season, you just went, this is Will Howard's team and Avery Johnson has never existed, ceases to exist, will never exist. I don't know how much you would lower your expectations from where they stand currently. I mean, maybe you think that there's a chance you get a wild spark against Texas, or maybe Avery Johnson helps you beat Kansas. Maybe those games don't happen with Will Howard. The thing that I imagine is pretty openly discussed in the meeting rooms at K-State is to me at least, it would be very, very, very difficult to hand the reins to Avery Johnson and then to ever take them back and give them back to Will Howard without it feeling like a backpedal, or feeling like, ooh, we may have put too much on the freshman's plate a little too soon. Now it's getting a little colder out. We're trying to make sure we're happy in our bowl game. We're trying to continue to contend in this conference. Let's go ahead and hand it back to the old head who could steer the ship a little bit. The alternate path is way easier to say, we got two guys we like. We can have the signal caller do the quarterbacking things and then deploy this weapon, this freshman weapon as we go. I understand why that's an easier path to manage. It's certainly the less risky path, because you could also always say, ooh, maybe Will Howard's actually taking a step back himself and we're going to move on entirely. But the higher ceiling to me feels like making it Avery Johnson's offense and just pushing that as much as you can. I don't expect them to do that, at least not until the offense costs them a game or something. And that would be an oversimplification, I think, for the losses they have. So I understand where Kleiman is coming from, even though I wonder what the truth serum answers would have been there. Because it's only Tuesday, but I know Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert are going to play on Sunday, and it's only Tuesday for them also.
I wonder the next couple of weeks, and this is, if I'm Chris Kleiman, this is how I'm approaching it. And, well, I shouldn't say if I'm Chris Kleiman, this is how I'm approaching it, because he wouldn't approach it this way, I guess. But I'll start off with, I believe this team has 8 wins right now. They've got 4. Win the next 2 weeks to give you 6, and then you've got Iowa State and, oh gosh, who's the other one?
Baylor's in the middle there.
Baylor between Texas and Kansas.
Yep.
So, and maybe that's a trap game, right? Maybe that's you come off Texas and then you're getting ready for Kansas the next week and Baylor at home, depending on what Baylor looks like, all of that stuff.
Jason Anderson, Iowa State hater. Doubter.
That's a home game, though, right?
I got to go back.
Yeah, that's in
I
Manhattan.
just wanted to gas up
that's
Iowa State again.
That's in Manhattan.
Yep, it is.
And so I think they should have 8 wins right now. The question between 10-2 or 8-4 or 9-3 is at Texas and at Kansas. Mm-hmm. And for the next 2 weeks, I've got Will Howard and Avery Johnson. And I've got to see, quite frankly, what I have in Avery Johnson and how much more of the playbook he can get. I am not comparing these two, because you're talking about a freshman versus a guy who's, been in college for a couple, 3 years. But Dillon Gabriel, the way that he played against Texas was, really good. 14 carries, 113 yards. He threw the ball 38 times as well. I don't think Avery Johnson's ready to say, hey, the whole game plan's on you. Here you go. Here's the entire game plan against Texas on the road, a top 10 team. This is a chance to put yourself in the driver's seat to maybe go and play Oklahoma. Here's the game plan. There you go, freshman, go get it. As opposed to Dillon Gabriel, who's been around and played at, different school and now at Oklahoma and, incredibly talented, to then go and play that way the game of his life against Texas. But that is what got the Texas defense, was a quarterback that was able to throw and run and offer different variables rather than just, okay, here's Milroe for Alabama. He's going to be more of a runner. He can throw it a little bit, but he's going to be more of a runner. Okay, here are some other guys that they have faced who are going to be passing quarterbacks. The one guy that actually offered a higher level of both put up 34 points on him. He played an absolute sensational, brilliant game, almost as well as you could play. He took 1 sack all game against Texas. and picked up 113 yards on the ground. And by the way, in college, sacks count against your rushing yards. So the 113 yards is also, taking out the sack. And I do wonder the next couple of weeks how much it's adding a little more, adding a little more, adding a little more, because this is what we want to do against Texas. I don't think he'll take every snap against Texas, but I think I've got 14 days to get ready for that big one on the road. And I've got Will Howard and I've got Avery Johnson, and I've got to find a way to win that game and win at Kansas, because if I'm 10-2, I'm playing Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship.
I think that begs the question then, though. I mean, is that the goal? Is the goal to have Avery Johnson at his most this is going to sound like a backhanded compliment, but at his most competent, with the details and the game plan and those types of things? He's more than competent right now, but as the rest of the quarterbacking position demands, if the goal is to have him ready for Texas, it does change your strategy against TCU and Houston. It does. You might have some high leverage moments that you'd feel safer letting Will Howard handle, but they might have a higher payoff to putting Avery Johnson in those moments now. So that I like that view from K-State's perspective. I will be very interested to see if they hint that direction as well over these next couple of weeks, because I'm not sure I'm willing to bet on that yet, but I would like to see it.
And I shouldn't say if they're 10-2, then they're definitely going to be playing Oklahoma because that is completely discounting Oklahoma State.
And Iowa State, man.
Well, they'll play Iowa State.
They would be Iowa State. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's the one that
I just want to make you an Iowa State hater for some reason.
I don't know. Maybe I should. They just beat Kansas State and Kansas.
Yep.
So I should be more of a believer in Oklahoma State. I guess I'm still wait and see. But they got Oklahoma at home, and other than that, they play West Virginia, Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and BYU. They got the 4 newbies left, and West Virginia, and then Oklahoma at home. So Oklahoma State would have to lose 2 more. Now, that's how rough that Friday night game was on October 6th. We'll see. A lot of football left to be played. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk about some college football with Braden Gall next.
insider Braden Gall.
Nobody cares.
Now in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Everyone has their own taste, and mine is just better.
Brought to you by Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. Whatever you do, if you're a Missourian, we're for you. We are Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance, and we've got you covered.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. Let's hang out with Braden Gall here, our college football insider from ESPN Radio and Athlon Sports, joining us here in the zone. Braden, how are you, sir? How are you, Braden? What do you say? Huh? Is he up? Is the phone potted up?
I'm doing well.
Oh, yeah. Hey, there he is. All right, we have him. We are doing great. Was that a you thing, or was that maybe a Dylan problem?
No, that was me. I had it muted because I hear when you put me on, and I didn't want to hack. I'm dealing with some recovery from Neyland Stadium this Saturday.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't want to hack into the radio while you guys are doing your fancy rejoin.
No, that's great. I totally appreciate that. Although it would have been perfectly fine had you did that as well. So we would not have had an issue with that.
All right, I'll do that at random at some point during the segment today.
Please do that. How was the trip? First ever trip. You get the win. Huh? You were ye of little faith.
I know. It's really giving my daughters, a 7 and 5-year-old daughters, a really bad life lesson that Tennessee's going to win things. So it's not a good thing.
So foolish.
I will say it's a false sense of security. What's fascinating is the reaction as a father and a parent and an alumni in that moment is just so different than my reaction as an analyst with my buddies or on the show we just did, SEC Football Live, every Tuesday at noon Central Time.
That's
on
right.
the 440 Sports YouTube page. Myself and Michael Bratton, as we discussed who the coach of the year is in the SEC, which is a very obvious answer right now. My reaction as a parent is watching my 5-year-old ask me for a second shaker so that she can be as loud as possible on third down, and my 7-year-old singing Rocky Top and learning the chants and learning the cheers, and I go, what was your favorite part as we're walking out and walking back to the car? And she's like, when you picked me up and we're jumping around, that was my favorite thing during the punt return touchdown, of course, in the third quarter.
Awesome.
And just seeing through their eyes all the things that I probably, my father saw through my eyes, when I was that age, it could not have been a more memorable and greater moment as a human. There's very few memories I will ever have that are going to be better than that one.
That's awesome.
As just a in the history of my life. And then my brain immediately goes to but they scored one offensive touchdown at home against an average football team, and they clearly do not trust their quarterback to make important throws. The only other game that was tough on their schedule that they played, they went down to Florida and got punked. What is this team? And nobody, my buddies are like, well, we get through the whole parent conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, yeah, but they scored one offensive touchdown in a close game where they needed a punt return and barely beat an average football team at home. And my buddies are like, well, that's one way to look at it. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's the only thing that happened. I don't know what else to do. Oh no, we it's a gutty performance where they gritted out a tough win and blah blah blah. I'm like, you think that's going to work against Bama this weekend? What are you talking about? So it's funny. It was really funny. Of course, I was driving home from Nashville. All 3 women in my car asleep. Of course, no one appreciates Dad. And I'm driving the car. We get in the car 7:30, 7:45, 8 o'clock, whatever. We're home by 10. And the whole time, I'm sitting there going, they're just not that good. They're not that that was one of the best days of my life, but they're just not that good. And I can't turn those two sides of my brain off because of my job. And it's just I can't all the way be the fan anymore. I'm dead inside. You know this. It happens when you're in this business for long enough. You can't not be the analyst. And I think we're going to learn. I think Tennessee fans are going to learn the hard way this weekend against Alabama.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough that the professional team in town, since my son has been alive, he is very, very spoiled. So, like, those.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, those moments are, my wife, videoing my son and I when Butker's lining up for the field goal in the AFC Championship game against the Bengals and us going crazy. And then my wife videoing, my brother, nephew, me, son, as Butker's lining up for the field goal in the Super Bowl, to kick it, to win it. Like, those are because at those moments, right, I can put the analyst hat down because they're winning at the ultimate level. Like if you were at the playoff game or the national championship game, then you wouldn't have to wear your analyst hat, and just cheering on your daughter.
Right.
During the season, though, there are plenty of they played that way against this team, but we'll see how they're going to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah, like on the Missouri.
First of all, that's a lot of Butkers in your memories there for just as a point of context.
I know.
I will say, like, we're Packers fans. Like, I was raised a Packers fan. I have a shared stock on my wall in the office, and like fourth generation from Wisconsin, and so my daughters are Packers fans.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is, like, they are not going to understand what my life was like from 1992 to 2022.
Yeah.
With two quarterbacks. Like, they're not going to understand. Like, they were around, like, I had them in the living room for, like, the Saints game where they're down 17-0 and the Packers make the big comeback in the fourth quarter. And I got them, like, same thing as Neyland Stadium. Like, you have to see those moments to, like, trigger those memories as a kid. And, like, they got it. It landed on them, and now they're fans, and they're rooting, and they're cheering. And then, like, the next three games have happened. And, like, one of them's on my daughter's birthday. And she's like, oh, they play on my birthday every year. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it's going to be probably the rest of your life. And because birthdays, are the same day every year. And so, like, I just don't think Jordan Love's very good. And so I'm like, honey, I don't think you're going to understand. Like, you're going to be like what my dad grew up with when he was born in 55. And he got, like, Bart Starr as a kid and then was 30 years of atrocious Packer football. And so I have a feeling as a Packers fan, she's going to have lots of sorrow, I feel like, coming. So
yeah, I have the exact opposite. My son's going to be through high school by the time Patrick Mahomes is no longer the quarterback of his team, and I'm like, you'll never get it, son. You'll never understand the Steve DeBergs and Craigs and Bonos and Gerbacks and Palcos and Thigpens and Castles along the way that played, and Brady Quinns that took snaps, buddy. You'll never understand it. When you watch the backup quarterback, it's because they're winning, and even the backup quarterback in a game in the playoffs is going 99 yards to score a touchdown.
It's really funny. Like, I have a towel from the old Sombrero, Tampa Bay Buccaneers Stadium.
Nice.
I was 12 years old, and it was like week 3 of the season, or I was 11 years old. It was week 3 of the season, and I have the towel against. It was Green Bay against Tampa Bay, and it was Brett Favre's first start, and it's like,
wow,
because he came in against the Bengals, I believe, in like week 2, and that, like, after that, that's when his start streak began or whatever. And it's like I never even connected that until I was like 35 or 40 years old.
That's awesome.
Like, that's the moment that I saw, and then the rest of my childhood and early adulthood was directly into Rodgers, and so it's like you don't even have a concept of what.
Yeah.
Like, I do, because as a Packers fan, I see what the Bears have gone through, and as that warms my heart, I'm now being very careful about talking too much trash.
That's smart. Braden Gall is our guest. We'll talk some college football. You said you were discussing the college, the SEC Coach of the Year, an obvious answer. Who's the obvious answer?
I mean, it's Eli Drinkwitz has done everything you could possibly ask of a Missouri head coach, of any coach in the SEC this year. I mean, how many teams are bowl eligible right now in the SEC? Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, and Eli Drinkwitz. I mean, not that that's the deciding factor, but, like, I mean, they're a couple plays away from being 7-0. They beat two out of conference rivals. They like, you go on the road and take a punch in the face like that, and then get off the mat and I'm like, it could have been worse. Like, I was rewatching the game because obviously I was in the car, and, like, I get back Saturday night and I'm rewatching the game, and I'm like, they didn't even finish enough drives. They could have made it worse. It could have been worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, obviously the injury to Brady Cook last year is probably not being talked about enough. I'm sure you guys do, But
we don't
nationally,
even talk about it enough, quite frankly.
It's not talked about because he looks like a totally different human being.
Yep.
Now, is that 1 year of off-season weight training and Kirby Moore's offense and Luther Burden being better and et cetera, et cetera? Sure, that could all be possible. And that's all probably a factor in it. But, he does not look like the same person. And the injury and him dealing with it for longer than we thought, it's just clearly a big part of it. And to watch that offense play at that level of efficiency, and again, that's not a bad Kentucky team. We've seen these two play before. They play these weird games. It's the same kind of Missouri-Florida games. They're always these weird games. And to go down 14-0 and then just boat race a Kentucky Mark Stoops team with a pretty decent defense at home, that's just really impressive stuff. Now, I think what's interesting, you got to handle your business against a team like South Carolina, which Eli Drinkwitz has been very good. He's never lost to Shane Beamer. The Florida game has been very strange. Arkansas, with KJ on the road, that could always be a tough game. I don't think you're judged, if you lose to Georgia. To me, this is about Tennessee. This season now is almost all about the Tennessee game, which again, it's not. It's going to be a great year no matter what for Missouri. But if you beat Tennessee at home, you're probably 10-2. You have struggled against Tennessee in the past, and Tennessee, I think, at that time, could be kind of teetering. If they lose to Bama and they lose to Kentucky, or maybe they beat Kentucky barely, or they lose to Georgia, Tennessee is in this place where you could get them at the right time. They play Georgia the following week, so maybe they only have one more loss on their schedule, but they got to play at Bama, at Kentucky the next 2 weeks. As I was just saying, they don't look all that special. Right now, Missouri looks like the better team. And so if they beat Tennessee at home and kind of handle their business against South Carolina, who knows about Arkansas and Florida, but if they are, what would that be, 8-2 going into the last two games, I think that's as good a coaching job as anybody's done in the entire country.
Braden Gall is our guest from ESPN Radio, Athlon Sports. Each time we have him on, presented by Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. Chris Kleiman today said that he's got two quarterbacks that he can win with. They do not know who's going to start. They don't know what the rotation will be. There's no 50-50, 60-40, 80-10 or anything, but two QBs we can win with. Is this different than the old adage of you've got two QBs, you don't have one? If you've got Will Howard that's experienced and Avery Johnson that seems to make them look different, sort of like a Kansas State offense that we've come to know over the years, of a quarterback that can do both and looks really efficient and dangerous running the football. Is this the old adage of you have two QBs, you don't have one, or do you view this one a little bit different because of the two QBs?
I think it's how you manage it, right? Florida won a national championship with Chris Leak and Tim Tebow. Spurrier, I think, would do it kind of successfully, but he would do it yo-yoing them in and out of the lineup. I think if you have two guys that have two very different skill sets and sort of very different strengths and weaknesses, at least currently at this time, I think you can absolutely make it work. And I think the larger picture in all of this, because I think I remember you and I were talking about Johnson and how different the team looked. I want to say back against
Missouri. Yeah, I didn't want to see him in the game. I wanted Will Howard to come back in the game.
But you could feel the offense get this jolt of energy, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's different. That again, I'm not going to go full Tebow here because that's ridiculous. But that's what Tebow was in 2006. He would come off the bench and give him the energy in clear running situations around the goal line, third and short, whatever it might be. And Avery Johnson is probably going to be used a lot more than that. So what's interesting is, and I think is TCU going through this right now? There's so many, the larger conversation about the Big 12 is just so fascinating to me because you can't, every game, as I said last week and the week before, every one of these matchups runs together. They just, and if you had told me, Iowa State, because Iowa State's played more than one quarterback. If you'd have told me that Iowa State and Kansas State, Iowa State and Oklahoma State would be near Oklahoma at the top of the standings with one loss each at this point of the season, and then, oh, by the way, West Virginia's nipping at their heels, you would have looked at me like I was crazy. Now, Kansas State's still in that mix, obviously. Mm-hmm. Kansas, that was a disappointing performance. But, all these teams have played multiple quarterbacks. It's wild.
The Kansas part of it, Braden Gall's our guest, ESPN Radio Athlon Sports. The Kansas part of it is interesting because, I thought they would go and win against Oklahoma State. I didn't know if Oklahoma State found something against K-State or, just played really well on a Friday night or really well to their level. Right. The KU part of it is interesting because, they're sitting here on the season 5-2, and there's been so much of an unknown around Jalen Daniels. He didn't play against Texas. He didn't play against Oklahoma State. Those are the games they've lost, and it's nothing against Jason Bean. I think it's the interesting part about Jason Bean, and one of our hosts in the morning said that and he's grew up rooting for Kansas, went to KU, said if it weren't for Jalen Daniels, Jason Bean would be viewed as the best quarterback since Todd Reesing at KU. But Jalen Daniels is there, so it's like, oh no, well Jason Bean's playing, so it's sort of a downgrade of the guy that's out there. That's where I have a hard time sort of assessing KU this year. They're 5-2 if Jalen Daniels were healthy, but it's a back injury, even though they've got a week off, then they got Oklahoma. And if Jalen Daniels plays, well, we might be talking about that a little bit different. If Jason Bean's playing, well, then, we might be talking about that a little bit different. It's hard to assess this year because of the Jalen Daniels in and out of the lineup.
I think you're right to say that it's hard to assess. I think that's true because even last year, and I think I said this to you this summer, like when in the 4 games that he didn't play, like they still almost scored like 200 points.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I know they lost 3 of those 4 games, but like they scored a bunch of points in those games. And then you look at this year, and they've scored in the 2 games that they won. Of course, without Daniels, they scored 100 points. So, again, level of competition, I got it. Southwest Missouri State, I get it. But, they destroyed UCF pretty impressively with him. And I think that's a really important perspective because I've been having a lot of conversations this week with, like, Iowa fans about how everyone in the country is, like, piling on Iowa. Tennessee fans, we already had the conversation about how they view that offense. I think what happens in college football is, and I think some of this is not the media, like the individual's fault, but I think like the medium with which we operate in and create content in for our audiences. I know that's a little complicated, but it benefits everyone to just be super reductive and be like, oh, you're either great or you suck, and that's it. There's no middle ground anywhere for us to like say, I think like Jason Bean would be a pretty good quarterback, one of the better quarterbacks of the last 10 years of this team, and they could be a 7-win football team with him. Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good season for Kansas football. And I remember Clemson losing to Florida State and people just being like, oh, Clemson sucks. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, they might not be elite. They might not win 12 games. They might not go to the playoffs. But Clemson could still win 9 games this year, and if you win 9 games, like that's pretty good.
Yeah, not
bad. It's not even average. It's better than average. Is it Clemson's expectations? No. But all this to say, like I just most of college football has lived in the gray area. Most of college football is, especially with the 12-team playoff coming and harder schedules and 10-team conferences and power super conferences and all this stuff. Like we're just going to have. Like, I don't think we're going to see very many undefeated teams ever in college football moving forward. And I think those are special moments, and I think everybody else is kind of like 2 lost teams. A really good football team is going to be a 2 loss team.
Yeah.
And I think we have to sort of recalibrate our perspective on, like, if Kansas goes 8-4, that's one hell of a season. Full stop, no notes needed.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. Braden Gall is our guest, Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. Braden, I appreciate the time, brother. Give your voice a little rest, and we will talk next week and talk a little more college football. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sorry about that, boys.
Oh, you're good, man. You're absolutely good. There's Braden Gall. Hey, I get it, man. He's there at Tennessee and got the family with him. That's awesome. He's presented by Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. Whatever you do, if you're a Missourian, they're for you. They are Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance, and they've got you covered. More Zone coming up next.
Last segment of the Zone today. Jason Anderson is just down the hall. He hasn't left. We're not without him. But he has been working on a passion project of sorts during, I think, almost literally, if not literally, every single break of the show. Sorry if I've created a difficult thing for the video feed, Dylan. I'm just sort of standing. Don't even sweat it. Whatever you got to do.
I made it work. I can see you.
Dylan's just a guy who makes it work.
The mic stand might be doing you a disservice, but
well, listen, if I don't hold it up, I can either hold the mic stand up here like this, or I can talk. Mizzou football. I was really impressed with their.
Need to get that Mike Heartland Men's Health.
That's exactly the problem. This microphone has one of those key issues. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to read you my red zone stat from earlier that I'm sure we'll talk more about tomorrow. But Nate Tice had a stat over the evening, sometime late in Chargers Cowboys, that I thought was really interesting. It goes back to what we were talking about in the first hour of the show today, which, by the way, is already up on the Zone's podcast page if you want to grab that, 810WHB.com, the 810 mobile app, or just search for The Zone 810 wherever you get your podcast, and you'll find that hour. But I thought a lot of what Jason had researched and some of the conversations we've had about the evolving face of NFL offense was interesting. And then Nate Tice last night tweets out, offenses are currently scoring touchdowns on 53.3% of their red zone opportunities, the lowest rate through 6 weeks since 2011. So if it feels like the red zone success rates have been down for the Chiefs, we've seen that in real life, the rest of the league, it's not just anecdotal. There's actually stats to benefit that. Jason's back.
All right, so
Jason's back. That's Banks.
There we go.
There it is. Hi, Jason.
All right, so I've been working on something, trying to finish it up, put the last touches on it. It's been a busy morning today, so I was unable to get it done this morning, which was unfortunate, but I wanted to do that before the show was over.
Is it going to happen?
It is going to happen. So I wanted to leave more time here to do this because it's more meaningful than just trying to work it into a segment here. So if there's anything we can take out, then Dylan, I know that you probably already done that, but that's fine. Soren talked about this yesterday from the weekend that we had and how tough the weekend was. We hadn't said anything on the air because I didn't know if anything was going to be said or not on the air until the memorial service took place. And then obviously public people know about it. And saying our final goodbyes to Jed Marshall on Saturday morning was an incredibly difficult thing to do. Someone who deserved a better fate than what ended up being for Jed. Someone who you always felt happier when you were around him. You and I talked about it when it happened, that just how devastating it was, how sad and awful and depressing and defeated you sort of feel when something like that happens. Because you don't know what's going on in somebody's life when they're away. But man, he always made you feel happy when you talked to him. And one of the things that you said was you just feel like he had enough, you wish he had enough of that for himself. That he didn't use all of what may have been the happiness on other people. Like you can use it in monetary form. If you had $10 and you needed $10, he'd give you $10 and wouldn't have any left. And it sort of felt like that when it came to everybody else around him and making them feel special and wanted and appreciated, I should say. So, again, I wish I had 20 minutes or so, but we can certainly, we'll have Mick on and different things, and we can talk more about Jed. This ain't the last time we'll talk about Jed. I'll promise you that. But I do want to put something together for Jed. And his favorite band was Fish. So this is what I tried to put together for Jed to try to capture the passion and how hilarious he was and the dry wit and how funny he was. And it doesn't do it justice, certainly. Been, wish I had another couple of hours to continue to work on it. But here it is. Take a listen as, we had a very difficult weekend, but at least, it's better to remember the times when you smile and know what it was, how awesome it was hanging out with them.
I'm floating in the blimp a lot.
We surveyed 100 of our fine listeners. We got the top 8 answers on the board. We asked them to name a breakfast food.
Seren.
Lead.
Ugh.
Eggs.
Eggs were the top answer. Would you like to play?
I was honestly like 2 seconds ahead on my headset.
Yeah.
On that.
It's too bad we don't go by your headset.
Hello.
Lebo's wife doesn't like that, and he does it to her anyways because he's a jerk. I thought we were taking shots at Anderson, man.
You're right. Let's get back on track.
The path ahead of me. In a minute I'll be free, and you'll be splashing in the sea.
How many hours of election coverage did you watch? None? 0 to 1 hour? 1 hour or more? Curtis level.
If you're looking for any help today, Curtis, from Jed Marshall during the course of the 4 hours of the program, you're going to be sadly left wanting.
I'll help Curtis with anything he needs.
Okay, I'm sorry. If I'm looking
I think that's
for
more
any
accurate.
kind of help today from Jed Marshall, I'm going to be left wanting.
A word to the wise for the listeners. Do not choose Seren for the feud. I have a feeling he will not be winning. Eebs, Curtis, you both are giant fat asses.
I'm working hard, man.
You're trying to be less of a
funny
fat
because it's true.
That's just accurate.
Because I have no kids and I'm not married. But
There's
all the
that
rest,
lack of life.
yeah,
to
it's
that.
because I'm a giant loser.
I wouldn't say you're a giant.
Oh, you're right. I'm just a regular
You're a
sized,
skinny fat loser.
regular sized person, but a
Skinny
loser
fat
nonetheless.
Yeah.
I'm a giant. You're a medium size.
Ethan Horvath, 8th Beth.
Yeah, we got that. Though.
Eighth
We got
Beth.
Beth.
Best.
Eighth Beth.
Horvath.
Sorry,
I can't wait for my 2 front teeth to come in.
I'm sorry, I have a speech impediment. Thank you. That's very
what
polite.
is-
Is that what we do? We just bully people now?
I'll say
A wrong answer, probably.
I've been listening. There's been this ongoing candy
of talk.
conversation on the zone.
Yeah. By the way, Anderson's just wrong.
Which one?
Jason.
You could have just left it there. Anderson's just wrong.
Corey's better about this.
Maybe that's what that show should be called.
Jason doesn't eat.
You could always ask for some help. I am capable of putting together the open as well. It was easier for me to smoke like 4 cigarettes before the show. It's fine. You know Curtis doesn't like current things.
Yeah. Chris Rock being like cutting edge.
Well, relatively to Bob Hope.
Yeah.
Jed doesn't like people he's not heard of.
I know who Bob Hope is, wise ass.
Ooh. Hey, coming out hot.
Oh, Jed.
Coming out hot today.
I'm frustrated because I went to KU. I want my university to be good at football, but the fact that Erin actually sat down and put pen to paper, God bless her. Why would anyone do it? Who is invested in this team? Like, why? You're an insane person like me. It's so freaking frustrating because it's not that hard.
But maybe you can't out-recruit North Dakota State. When I see like Trey Lance, it could be the number 2 pick in the draft. And he's up at North Dakota State, and Chris Kleiman got him up there. He got Carson Wentz up there. I mean,
then that's an indictment on your program. You should disband your football program if that's where you sit and you're a Power 5 school and you're getting beat up by North Dakota State. North Dakota has 8 people there. What the hell? They haven't won a road conference game since 2008.
Yeah, their last road conference game happened when Barack Obama was a senator.
Oh, my God. You two done farting around in there?
That's what she said.
There we go.
Love that.
I'm okay with that.
Absolutely love that.
Corey Anderson is pissed.
Because Anderson hates Colquitt.
Yeah, hates him. Loves Tommy Townsend for no reason. Hates Dustin Colquitt because he's a great guy and Corey Anderson is a horse's ass. I think that The Simpsons is a smarter show, making it funnier. I'm sorry that I'm of a higher education.
It's like some episode of Wings where the two brothers were all both vying for this one woman's attention, and at the end she goes, "Well, I guess it's just as well because I only find one of you attractive." She walks away, and they're both like,
Yeah.
That's
what were
them.
What were the something brothers?
Yeah, the Hackett brothers. We're the Hackett brothers. We're in control.
Nothing like a Wings reference to really keep it current.
Damn good show. You should probably check it out.
I've seen it 25 years ago.
All right, there you go. Doesn't do it justice. Does not do it justice. Beautiful service on Saturday, and too soon.
Yep.
Jed was an awesome individual, man.
He was. They did a great job, like you said, honoring all of that on Saturday. It made for a very, very difficult morning, but he was a very good man, a very good friend, and dealt with a lot of hard stuff in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And you would never know that by all of the joy he brought to other people.
Yep. Always felt like there was like a reservoir of joy right there that maybe he couldn't just get to. And if he got to it, just, I don't know.
Left us with a lot. Left us with a lot of good audio, a lot of good memories.
Yeah. Yep. It was always better when Jed was around. That's for sure. And not many people you can say that about. But you could certainly say that about him.